Good evening, everyone. Al Diorio here for the July 1st, 2020 Planning Board meeting. I'd like to call this to order at 7:03. And first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. And this would be the June 3rd, 2020 regular meeting minutes.
I have two amendments to make to the minutes. This is Talia Gillette, Senior Planning Clerk. As I was reviewing them again, I noticed on page 3 and 4 of the minutes, I wrote that the vote was 5. It was actually 4 as Mr. Diorio accused himself. Those are the only changes to the minutes that I think need to be made.
Very good, thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to perhaps approve as amended.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second. Chief Lindelof.
Thank you. Motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Diorio, yes.
Prelwitz, yes. Lindelof, yes.
I'm sorry, was that everyone?
Is Emily present?
Emily's here. Yes.
Okay.
I was waiting for Carolyn. Sorry.
Oh, Carolyn, yeah.
Carolyn hasn't voted yet, but she is in the meeting.
Carolyn, yea or nay? Hello. Carolyn, are you in attendance?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me now?
I can hear
Yes.
you. And all those yeses, did that include one for voting on the motion to approve as amended?
Yes, I voted yes for the motion.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, passes. Thank you. Now, the next item on the agenda is a public hearing. And for this particular topic, I have to issue a notice of recusal. This is on the Fothergill project. I performed surveying services for this applicant for many years until they selected this particular path. I have no involvement at all in this project, but nonetheless, I feel it's in everyone's best interest for me to recuse myself. So I am handing my notice of recusal to Talia at this point in time. And Ron, I would ask that you please take over as the chair.
I'm accepting Al's notice of recusal.
Okay, thank you, Al. I am assuming you'll return after this item?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Good evening, everyone. Ron Prelwitz here. I'd like to open a public hearing. It's for the request for comprehensive plan zoning map amendments for AP Lot 2, Lot 1 through 10A, Crandall Lane, Centrica Business Solutions, and Maitland, Fothergill applicants.
At this time, I would like to ask the applicant and their representatives to please raise their hands by pressing *9.
Talia, I'll wait for you're okay.
One moment. It appears as though there are two people who have raised their hands, but they weren't included on the list of people who would be calling in regards to this project as an expert, so I will have to lower those hands. All right, you may begin, Steve.
Thank you, Talia, as always. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation here tonight. This application has, I think, unfortunately for all parties, been a long time coming to the board due to a number of delays that have been addressed in my letter to the board regarding a probate and regarding the COVID delays. So we're eager to move forward with this project and obtain some opinions from the board. Tonight, I will, with the board's permission, have a short recap and summary by our site engineer who represents ESS Group Engineering, Jason Gold. And I do want to state that we I made a request. I sent out a mailing to all of the abutters, advising them that I would be conducting an informational hearing, as well as taking phone calls and other requests regarding any questions, concerns, or thoughts they had with regard to this project. I did have that over the weekend, and I have a couple of upcoming meetings with additional abutters. And we are working diligently to do what we can to address their concerns and their requests. Some of them require additional levels of permitting beyond what we are able, beyond simple map changes. So we are working on those and are hopeful and are eager to hear any and all thoughts the board has with regards to current concerns and or things we can do to address those concerns. So with that being said, I will make a request of Jason Gold to briefly walk through the plan set, which was available on the internet, and I believe members all have hard copies in full size. So Jason, I'll turn the mic over to you.
Thank you, Steve. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Jason Gold. I'm a civil engineer with ESS Group. I'll just give you a brief overview of the project and then happy to take any more specific questions. The project is approximately a 3.9 megawatt DC ground mounted photovoltaic solar energy system, which also includes the equipment pad and several utility poles. Excuse me. It'll interconnect to an existing pole on Old Hopkinton Cemetery Road. The property is a 46.6 acre property off of Crandall Lane, which is a private road. It's zoned RFR 80. It's mostly a wooded site, mostly woods and wetlands. There is also 2 single-family homes on the property. The site's a hill, the high point of elevation about 127, and it slopes down from that high point. It slopes generally ranging from about 7 to 18%. The eastern portion of the site is comprised of wetlands. It's a swamp, and there's an intermittent stream and associated 50-foot perimeter wetland and 100-foot riverbank wetland. You see that on the east side of the site on the plans that you have. There's also a utility easement that crosses the site north to south, right along the edge of that wetland. The property is not located within any historic districts, state designated scenic areas, unfragmented forest tracts, or any state designated green corridors. It is located within a groundwater primary protection zone. It is not, I want to point out, it's not located within a natural heritage area. The plan that you have does show a natural heritage area boundary. That boundary's actually been changed recently since these plans were prepared. So it's actually no longer within a natural heritage area. The proposed array, the concept that you see in front of you, the array itself covers about 13.3 acres, which is about 29% of the entire lot. The area within the fence will be grass, and it's set back pretty far from Old Hopkinton Cemetery Road. It ranges from about 290 feet at its closest to 770 feet. And from The other street nearby is Amelia Street, and that's pretty far away too. It's about 540 feet to the closest panel. From the nearby residences, the abutting properties from the houses generally ranges from more than 200 to 300 feet from the residences. The project will be designed in accordance with the solar ordinance. All the distribution lines will be underground. All the yard setbacks will be met. That's a 60-foot front, 25-foot side, and 50-foot rear setbacks. The project will be surrounded by a minimum 6-foot high chain link fence. It'll be locked with a Knox box to provide emergency access. And the bottom of the fence will be raised 6 inches above ground to provide space for animals to pass beneath it. There's no exterior lighting proposed. The panel heights will not exceed 12 feet above final grade, and the vegetated buffer will be maintained within the yard setbacks. In the final design, the stormwater controls will be designed in accordance with the Rhode Island Stormwater Manual and the Hopkinton Land Development and Subdivision Regulations. We're thinking that there's probably going to be about 7 detention basins at the base of the hill, because the hill, you know, slopes in all different directions. So we'll have basins at the bottom of that to capture and slow runoff and make sure that stormwater runoff matches existing conditions. This is a concept plan. When we prepare the fully designed engineering permit level plans for our design plan review, we'll also include a noise study and the decommission plan, as well as a detailed stormwater report and soil erosion sediment control plan. The site will be accessed from Crandall Lane, which I think I mentioned is a private street. There's an existing driveway, and the site will be accessed from that road. So those are the general highlights of the project. I'm happy to take any more specific questions if you have them.
Okay, thank you. So far, there's been no mention of the vegetative areas that you plan to put in place. Do you have any information on that, or is that going to be brought forward at a later permitting stage?
Yeah, so at this point, it's just that the buffers will be vegetated as required. As far as more specific details, that'll be at the next stage.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that was you speaking. I can tell you that the areas currently are, there are pine trees and primarily occupying the buffer areas, and we would maintain those to the best of our ability, as well as supplementing ground-based planting based upon the viability of them surviving underneath the existing pine trees.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Do we have any more information coming from any of your people, Steve?
I have Charles Travasic, who is a representative of Centrica. If there are specific questions with regards to the energy aspect of this site, otherwise we would turn it over to questions from the board and the public.
Okay, thank you. Planning board members, any questions, comments, concerns?
No questions.
Emily?
Yep, this is Emily. I have a couple questions.
Okay.
You mentioned there's 2 single-family homes on the property. Looking at the map, there also appears to be like a hole cut out of the middle of the property. That's another couple homes in there, I believe 11 and 12 Crandall Lane. So if this property is rezoned commercial, I assume, I'm trying to, deduce this from the maps that map and the plans you provided. You proposed this subdivision. Basically, what I'm getting at is, are those existing structures going to be accessing their homes from this subdivision, or will they be traversing commercially zoned land in order to get to their driveways and their homes?
Right, yeah, that's a good, okay.
Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Thanks for bringing that up. I forgot to mention the subdivision. Yeah, so the subdivision, you can kind of see the dashed line on the plan. So the residential, the existing residences on the property would be subdivided off. And so that lot in Crandall Lane would remain residential. And the solar array is accessed from that subdivision. Those other two houses that you mentioned, those are their own lot, and they are accessed over an easement across Crandall Lane.
So the solar array is accessed through the subdivision, the residential subdivision.
Right.
Okay. I have one more question. Mr. Surdit mentioned some permit issues. I'd like to know more about those.
We don't have any issues right now. There have been some requests in my conversations with the butters that we have to determine the viability of those requests, and if we would have to obtain, and what permits we would have to obtain from entities such as DEM and Department of Public Works before I can give them an answer. So I don't have any specific issues at this time. I am looking into the request of abutters, which actually include those some of the landowners located in that bubble area, the two lots that are accessed by the easement.
Okay.
Okay, anything else from planning board members?
This is Carolyn. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Would it be inappropriate to ask you what those requests from the abutters are?
I would prefer to have that conversation directly with them, as it wasn't vetted out in public. So I have no problem if those folks are on here and they wish to bring them up, I will address it. But I would, out of respect to those conversations, request to keep those with conversations between myself and them at this time. And then they will certainly be vetted out as we move forward and go through the town council and the development plan review process.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Thanks, Carolyn.
No, I have.
Carolyn,
Can I
anything else?
yeah. I do have something else here.
Okay.
Okay. Centrica is a familiar name around the community, so I want to ask them why they are proposing 13 plus acres on a residential zone, changed zones to commercial at more than the 3% or the 3 acres that exists in our solar ordinance.
This project was filed under the previous solar ordinance, so that is the reason that, that is the reason that our request exceeds 3% or 3 acres.
Jim, can you confirm that? That's true.
Yes, this is Jim Lampier, town planner. Yes, that is correct, Carolyn. It's grandfathered
Thank
under
you.
the previous solar ordinance.
Okay, so does grandfathering cover 25-foot setbacks?
The setbacks are governed by the solar ordinance, which is a specific ordinance created for solar arrays. So the 25-foot setback applies. There has been some misconceptions out there that there's supposed to be a 100-foot separation. That is not a requirement of the solar ordinance. And specific ordinances generally overrule a general broad ordinance. The more specific trumps a general. So while the 100-foot setback is in there for industrial structures from a residential zone, that's in our zoning ordinance, the larger zoning ordinance. But our solar ordinance was created specifically for solar arrays, given the nature of the arrays themselves. So that's the interpretation that we have applied, town staff has applied. We arrived at that interpretation from a conversation with our zoning official and town solicitor, and that is the position that we feel as though that we can defend based upon the wording of the solar ordinance.
Okay. Bells ring from a town council meeting such a long time ago where it was even suggested that because of the dense residential population surrounding this potential plan, that they be 350 feet. I'm not suggesting that, but I am suggesting that I'm not a fan of a 25-foot setback in a densely populated residential zone. There are too many abutters that are going to be impacted, and we've had experiences where a 25-foot setback is it just doesn't work. So those are my comments as far as what I'm seeing on the plan.
Thank you, Ms. Carolyn. We will work to address those concerns.
Okay, if that's all from the planning board members, this looks like a good time to open it up to public comment.
If I can interject 1 second, this is the Jim Lanfear, the town planner. I just want to mention,
Sure, go ahead.
I want to mention to everyone, because I'm not even sure that the planning board is aware of this. We did have some confusion. The plan that was submitted in January or prior to the adoption of the current solar ordinance, which is grandfathered, has a different configuration layout of the solar panels than what you were provided in your packet. Now, that is what was presented at that time, and that is what is grandfathered. People were notified to come to the clerk's office and view copies of the proposed plan. The plan that you've been provided in your packet differs from what they saw in the clerk's office. I did have a comment from one gentleman who actually is responsible for bringing this to my attention, is that the solar panels actually have been moved closer to his property on the plan that the planning board has received. He says he told me that he would tend to favor the first one that was given to the town rather than this second one. So I don't know from a legal standpoint exactly what's grandfathered here or not. I'll let the applicant speak to his own presentation, to his own application. But I would say that maneuvers such as this really confuse the public a great deal. So.
I'd also like to quickly mention, this is Talia, Senior Planning Clerk. The plans that were posted on the website are the same plans that were sent to the planning board. Just to clarify that, but they are, as Jim has said, different from the ones that were originally filed with the clerk's office.
I'd also like
Thank you, Talia.
I'd also like to mention as well that a concern that Carolyn just raised is in my view, a valid concern and would be one sufficient to vote against the project. I mean, the fact of the matter is the 25-foot setback does apply to these arrays. However, if you look at the plan and you're not in favor of going forth with something like this under these set of regulations, I would say it would be grounds to deny it. But I would like to ask the board members, when it comes time for their deliberation after the public has a chance to speak, please include some references to the comprehensive plan, because actually what's being proposed here tonight is an amendment to the future land use map of the comprehensive plan in addition to a zoning ordinance change. So Please reference the comprehensive plan with specific examples of whether you believe this is consistent with the comp plan or inconsistent with the comp plan. And please include those in your, as your reasons for your vote, because it will be especially helpful to the town council. I know in past advisories, the council wants to see an explanation. They want to see reasons why the planning board either approved or rejected something, and they weren't happy with a mere vote, you know, yes or no, and with a tally of votes. They want to see what was said about it, what your objections are. So be as comprehensive and thorough in your explanation for your vote as possible. Thank you.
This is Carolyn. Can I speak?
Probably my delivery.
Hello.
Sure, Carolyn, go ahead, Carolyn.
For whoever is dialing in on this call, can you please help us maintain some quietness so we can hear the speakers without interruption?
Check the garage. We're so Christopher to check the garage for a box. So,
Yes, thank you, Carolyn. That would be a large help.
Thank you, Jim, for your comment.
Now, Jim, if I may, this is Ron again. What are the setbacks on the original plan that have been changed to the 25-foot? Can you elaborate on that, or is that something that needs to be left alone for right now?
I don't believe the setbacks themselves were changed, Ron, but the layout was changed. For example, if you look at the plan, in the southwest corner of the property, you will see solar panels there. On the initial plan that was submitted to the town, they were not in the southwest corner. They were in the northeast corner, closer to the wetlands. And I have.
Okay, understood. Yeah, I see where near Mr. Vredenberg's property, it's 176 feet to his house.
Mm-hmm.
To the, I guess that's to the buffer zone itself. Okay, understood. Thanks, Jim.
Jim, I can speak to that a little bit if you'd like. The reason the plan changes, the original plan that was submitted back in January of 2019 was all GIS based, and since then we've had survey done. So we updated the plan and the layout. So normally we submit a concept that's based on GIS, and then as the design progresses, we get survey and you know, the layout changes as we need to fit actual conditions. What happened here is that because there's been such a long delay, we've had that survey done. So you're actually just seeing a more advanced concept since the original one was submitted, because now we have survey, now we have an actual flagged wetland. So the base plan itself changed and the layout changed to accommodate that. That's the reason for the difference.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just respond to that. That's all well and good, Jason. One could expect to see plans change, layouts change during the course of a review. However, when you're submitting things and asking people to come in and look at plan sets that differ from what you've submitted to one agency from another, it leads to confusion. And when these people come in and we supply them with your latest change, and they're not seeing this in the clerk's office, well, they object to the panels being, I mean, the first plan that they saw, that they were asked to come in and look at, does not show any panels near their house. So one might be inclined to not be in opposition to something like that. But when the planning board is given a set of plans and asked to render an advisory opinion on it in a public hearing like this, and now all of a sudden we're faced with solar panels in the gentleman's, you know, much closer to his backyard, that could change his opinion. Now, if his opinion, if this wasn't picked up, if someone has an opinion based upon the first thing that they saw that they might not have any objection to, they might say to themselves, well, hey, I don't have any objection to the plan. There's no purpose in me going to the planning board meeting to participate in this, or town council. I'm fine with it. But now when the planning board is given another plan that has the panels closer to his backyard, they say, hey, wait a minute. maybe I do have an objection to that. So I don't care how or why these things change. There's a certain point in time that's appropriate to make an adjustment, and that is after everybody in the public, whether it's given to the town council public hearing or a planning board, we start off with the same plan. You should have brought this change or iteration back in the course of review before the board.
This is Carolyn. I have a question.
Okay, Carolyn, go ahead.
So I don't have access to those previous plans, but has the footprint increased?
I'll let the applicant speak to that. The engineer, you ought to be able to address that question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, there was a cough or something. I didn't hear the actual question.
The question was, has the footprint increased?
No. Hold on one second, actually, I'll pull out the other one. The size of the array itself is pretty much the same. Well, I mean, it was 3.9 megawatts, it's 3.9 megawatts now, so that hasn't changed, it just shifted around.
By my calculation, not calculation, but my view of this, there is almost 400 more modules in the new, I'm sorry, there's 400
less.
400 less, I'm sorry. So the number of modules looks like it's actually shrunk.
Yeah, the first one had 11,940. This new one is 11,588. What happened is the wetlands got bigger, so that shoved everything over.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Now, Jim, in your opinion, would this be a good time to go to the public comment?
Yes, I'm all through with my comments. I would open up to the public, Ron, and let's see what they have to say.
I don't know if it's my phone or not, but I'm getting an awful lot of outside noise coming through here. It's difficult to hear or understand anyone. We've had dogs barking and people talking in the background. I don't know what's going on here.
We can't control what people are doing in their homes, Ron.
I would recommend, this is Carolyn, I would recommend that if you are not going to speak, that you mute your phone. Like I'm going to do because my cats are fighting now.
Okay, let's move to the public comment portion of the program. Does anyone out there wish to speak on this project?
Yes.
Yes. Can you hear me? This is Sharon Davis.
Yes, we can hear you, Sharon.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. On that proposed subdivision, the lot 1A and 1B, is that owned by someone other than Fothergill? Did you hear me?
I heard you, but I don't know if anyone else did. Yeah, go ahead, Jim, or whoever that was.
It looks like they are from basically from the plans that I'm looking at, but I would think that the applicant could answer that question.
Ms. Davis, if you're referencing the two existing single-family homes that are located on the property, then yes, then they are owned by the Fothergills.
And those are going to stay. So you're actually proposing a subdivision as well as a comprehensive plan amendment and zoning amendment all at the same time?
That is the concept that's in front of you. Yes, Ms. Davis.
Because in general, under the old rules, if you change a residential property to commercial under the old plan, there could not be any residential houses left on that property. Am I correct?
Yes, Ms. Davis, and under our current proposal, we would continue that such that there would be there would be one single use on each of the two lots. We're not creating a multi-use lot. We would not be allowed to under your zoning regulation.
But you're going in defiance of the old way, where people could not live on that property once it became zoned commercial for the solar. And
no, Ms. Davis.
If you're under the old rules, I mean, you're trying to get around the old rules by creating a subdivision to keep the people to stay on their property.
We're creating a two lot, yes, because there's appropriate frontage there.
That's not the point that I'm trying to make, but I understand. And then I guess my question is, under the old rules, and this is for Jim Lanphier, where it shows the dimensional regulations. I'm looking at C1, just for reference, so we're all on the same page, where it has the dimensional regulations.
Yes.
Is there any way for the planning board, or if the town council were to accept this project, that we could edit the dimensional regulations so that we could increase them?
I'd have to take another, my understanding of the solar ordinance is that the new one, the one that we're currently under, which does not apply to this, there was a sentence added, that allowed for the planning board to push back these setbacks, increase the setbacks where they abut residential zones. That was put in for a reason, because there wasn't the ability for the planning board to do that otherwise. So without me taking a more thorough view of that, I don't think there is a way of doing that.
Okay.
Again, the way, if anyone has an objection to what's being proposed here, under the rules that apply to it, then you merely don't have to go along with the zone change and the comprehensive plan change. That's pretty simple.
Okay. Okay. Well, then I guess I'd like to say I think in order to protect the abutters, that I would not go for the subdivision, and I would not go for the minimum zone requirements under the old plan. So I guess I would not be for this project.
Ms. Davis, if I may ask you a question, Stephen Surdit. What would your request be regarding setbacks?
I'd like to go with the new ones, which are much like, a couple hundred feet, 300 feet, 400 feet, whatever, from the abutters. I don't think, the abutters have really, really suffered under these dimensions in the past. And under the old ordinance. I don't really.
I can tell you that we will take that into account and do what we can to address those concerns that you've raised, and look to address that in any way that we can while still maintaining a viable project.
I understand what you're saying, but what I hear is that you're still talking to abutters. You haven't finished satisfying their concerns, and then you're asking for the planning board to make a decision when not all of the information is known. But that's just my opinion. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
This is Jim Lanphier, town planner. I'd like to interject one thing. If I understood Councilor Davis's question correctly, she asked about lots 1A and 1B, the ownership of 1A and 1B. And those are separate lots. They're at the end of Crandall Lane. So the question was, are those 1A and 1B owned by the applicant? And then but the conversation went to the subdivision and the two houses that are on this parcel. Now, we know that those two houses are owned by the applicant, but does the applicant know the owners of the lots 1A and 1B?
Yeah, 1A and 1B are not, Fothergill. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Jason. No.
You don't know.
Well, then how can...
Yeah, no, we do know. Steve, you can
We
Yeah.
know that they are not owned by the Fothergills. I know. We know who the owners are. We have noticed them with a proper abutters notices.
They'll be totally surrounded. Are they in favor of this?
They would not be totally surrounded. I have to just
Well,
take a slight
looking at-
disagreement with that. One side of the property would have it. The remaining portion, which actually does surround their property, that is not in wetlands, the applicants are not proposing to utilize for solar purposes and are proposing to leave wooded. So we're certainly not going to surround them. So.
I guess maybe I'm getting confused here. When I look at C3, I see lot 1, which is yours, and then I see lots 1A and 1B. When I look at C1, I thought that lots 1A and 1B was part of the proposed subdivision. Am I mistaken?
2.2 acres.
1A and 1B is already subdivided.
That's not what I want to know. Where 1A and 1B is physically located on the C1 drawing.
Okay, so yeah, I can explain that. It's tough. There's a lot of things going on this drawing. So yeah, if you're looking at C1, do you see the label that says equipment pad?
Yes.
And 50-foot rear setback right above it?
Yes.
So that box there, that's 1A and 1B. There's 2 houses in there,
Okay.
right at the end of Crandall Lane.
Houses in there, and where it says where that little kind of a hexagon looks like, right?
Yes, exactly. That's 1A and 1B right there.
Okay, I was thinking that was part of the subdivision. I it's kind of hard to see on this map. So the subdivision is part of 1.
Right.
Yes,
So
Ms.
1
Davis.
would need to be split. So the existing houses
Yeah.
that are on 1
Okay.
would be divided up.
Okay. My point is you'd be setting a precedent with houses still being close and divided and all of that. But that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Now, I have a question. This is Ron. The parcels that are already subdivided, the 97,847 square feet, what are they subdivided as for designation? I mean, there's not enough area for them to be 2 lots and be RFR 80. So I'd just like a little clarification on that. That's not really spelled out here.
It would be, they're not 2 lots, it's 1 lot, Mr. Chairman. As it does now, would have 2 residences on it.
That's not the
Okay.
way C3 looks, but anyway.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Ron, if I can just
Anyone?
interject, this is Jim Lampier. I just want to mention something. Just for clarity, there are 4 residences that currently get access from Crandall Lane. Okay, the 2 owned by the Fothergills, and then 1A and 1B. Okay, and then also before we start talking about a subdivision, and basically we're not here tonight to review a subdivision, but as long as we're contemplating one, I'd like to have. I don't want to proceed under the assumption that this is acceptable to our zoning official. Because what we're doing is we're creating a 97,000 square foot lot, 2 acres, with 2 dwellings on it. So I just want to make sure that we have the minimum acreage, frontage. How is this going to be done? I mean, where is the frontage coming from for this lot? Is this going to be done as a compound off of Crandall Lane? I'd like to know who owns Crandall Lane, who maintains Crandall Lane. These are things that we would have to iron out in the course of reviewing a subdivision. So to assume, to just look at this concept plan and assume that it's viable at this point is a little premature.
I agree. In my mind, there's questions that need to be answered about this subdivision and about the actual ownership of the road. The road doesn't look like it's been maintained hardly at all for years and years.
So, Mr. Chairman.
If it's a private road. Yeah, go ahead.
And Mr. Planner, if you would prefer to continue the planning board's vote, subject to me obtaining that information and bringing it to the board, I would defer to you and I would have no objection to that. I can provide documentation to that effect regarding the ownership of the road, the maintenance of the road, the history of it, the history of the properties in general, and get some clarity from your zoning official.
I'll comment on that if I could as well. I don't know, because we're not reviewing a subdivision right now, I don't know if it's appropriate to spend that time doing that. The issue that is before the planning board tonight is whether to change the comprehensive plan future land use map and the zoning map from RFR 80 to commercial to allow a solar array. So basically that is what's on the table right now. Do we change the zoning on this parcel, or do we leave the zoning as it is? That's what's before the board tonight.
I totally agree, Mr. Planner, but I will make that, I will stand by my offer to the board.
This is Carolyn. I have another question.
Sure, Carolyn, go ahead.
Okay, this is a densely populated residential neighborhood. I am concerned that there is nothing jumping out of the plan that says this is where maintenance and emergency vehicles will be able to access the site. So that needs to be addressed. And I'm sad that it's not there now.
I can address that, I can address that directly. Our Crandall Road will be the point of access, and it will be maintained to a 20-foot width to the edge of the property. And I have had enough conversations with the public official to know that that will be sufficient for the emergency vehicle to get down there, and then from there, their hoses to be run to what they need, and we can provide, and I'll be happy to get that in writing.
So your comment is based on having maintenance and emergency vehicle access around the entire site.
It would be the ability of the emergency vehicle. It would be sufficient. I believe it would be sufficient via Crandall Lane for the emergency vehicles, based on my discussions with them and the way that they handle access to, and if there was an emergency inside of this property. But as we move forward, I will certainly get that in writing.
Okay, I'm confident that you can do that. It's something that the residents need to be able to approve.
Certainly. I have no objection to that, and as we move forward, that would be something that we would do in the normal course. Emergency access is important to all parties.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, anyone else in the audience that wishes to?
Yes, there are
Oh, Ron, this is Emily.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Talia. Hi, this is Emily. This has just raised and crystallized a couple other questions for me. And one of them is, this road, Crandall Road, is a private road. It's currently, I believe, included in this proposed subdivision to be zoned some form of residential, to be determined by, consultation with the zoning official. I don't understand how we could allow access to a commercial property through a residential private road. Right. Furthermore, I don't understand the sequence of events. If, for example, the planning board were to vote or give a positive opinion to the town council to rezone this property as commercial, and the town council went through their process, held their hearing, and approved the zone change to commercial, this entire property would become commercial, yet there would be 2 homes on it at that time. So I'm concerned about the sequencing of events of subdividing the property and simultaneously asking for a zone change, and this really tight spatial overlap between residential areas and commercial areas in this entire plan. I think it's really muddy, and that concerns me greatly.
I would like to mirror those ideas. It almost seems in my mind that the future status of these homes on 1A and 1B, I think it was 1A, up in the corner there, right on Crandall Lane. I think that needs to be established before we go any further and go ahead and okay this to be pushed to the next level and turning that into a commercial property. I'm really concerned about muddying the waters and giving those people a harder life than it really needs to be.
So, Mr. Chairman, I've had conversations with them, and I'm hopeful to be able to address their concerns. But I have to address permitting issues beyond municipal issues to get to that place. And we are investigating how we can make sure to address the concerns of those property owners.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience?
There are quite a few members of the public who are wishing to be heard in regards to this issue. I will select each one of you one by one. I will read off the last 4 digits of your phone number, and you'll be asked to identify yourself for the public record. The first person will be 8222. Please state your name for the record. Guest 8222, please state your name for the record and speak before the board and the assembled people. All right, I'm going to lower your hand. Next person. Last 4 digits, 2844.
Yes. Hello.
Please state your name for the record.
Kirsten Story.
You may speak.
I'm just curious on how the solar farms behind my grandfather's property that I have lived on my whole life. My maiden name is Jacobson. My grandfather built this road. It's always been farmland, gardens. How is this going to benefit me?
Ms. Story, are you directing it to the applicant or to the board?
To the board. I don't get it. I mean, you have solar farms all over this town. I just don't understand this. Can you explain this to me, why you want to do this on Crandall Lane?
That would be more of a question for the applicant. Excuse me for interjecting.
Yeah,
that
that
would
would
be a question for the applicant than for the board. But you're welcome to direct your questions at both the board and at the applicant.
It's to both. What is the purpose of this?
The purpose of this, Ms. Story, is to utilize this property in the most efficient way for the landowner. That's a choice that they've made with regard to property that they've owned for quite some time. And I can't say
Who owns
specifically.
the property behind me? Is it the Fothergills?
Yes, this is the Fothergill property.
Okay, so they're benefiting from this, right?
I would say yes. People don't do things on their land that they don't benefit from. So yes, they're going to benefit from it.
I talked to you this weekend.
Yes.
And then we talked about maintenance on the property, like goats and sheep. Seriously?
Yep, that's something that we're exploring. That utilizing instead of using lawnmowers to potentially have animals come in or utilize a more natural method of maintaining the vegetation.
And
certainly
then
on
the
the table.
company comes down 1 to 2 times a year to maintain it.
Yes, miss.
Okay, I have an issue with that. I really do. Because, like, say if there's a lightning strike on one of those solar panels, what happens?
Oh, I would, if Chaz, who is on this call, if I'm incorrect, please correct me. There are sensors, and if something goes wrong, there will be an immediate response. But
Right.
there is
Right.
just regular.
Say if one of those walls break down over the Allen line, the guy that was in the meeting with us this weekend.
I'm not sure what you mean.
I don't trust
You're
it.
talking about the viability of the panel, and if there's something wrong with the panel, if somehow the panel creates an environmental hazard.
Process.
Oh.
My issue is with the whole process. Like,
Well,
I
I'm
don't
sorry. I
know
apologize.
from point A to the end of 20 years, because you said they were going to be there for 20 years.
Correct. That's the general lifespan of these panels.
I don't know what the process is during those 20 years. I'm going to be here 20 years from now.
What do you mean by the process? They'll be maintained on a regular basis. There will be vegetation below them.
Once or twice a year, they're to come down, and then it was, oh, well, if it gets overgrown, they're going to put, like, goats and sheep.
No, I apologize if you thought I was, if and when. No, there's regular maintenance of the vegetation underneath. Yes.
They need to come down at least 4 times a year.
If you would prefer them to come down more often, we can address that, certainly. We try to minimize the amount of times we come to the site.
I don't know what I would agree upon to that, because they're fucking clear, I'm sorry for my language, they're clear cutting the land behind my house. And they've done this all over town. It's a small town. That's my issue. Like, what is the purpose of this? And you said it's like to keep the grid strong, but this town was built on country. This town was built on farmland and then just doing the best for ourselves. Are you there?
Well, that was interesting.
Yes, miss. I'm listening.
Yeah. But this is the town. It's not built on solar energy. It's not built on good old-fashioned sustainable living. Like, we built our gardens. We built our farms. We had this. And now you're putting, like, solar panels in our backyards. I have an issue with that. I really do.
Understood, Ms. Story.
I do. So, I don't know. I tuned into the town council meeting, and I'm glad that more residents gave their voice. But, I don't know. I just don't like it.
Okay, thank you. Understood.
Yeah. I mean, when Alan and I walked out of Attorney Serta's office last weekend, he was just like, the reason why I moved to this town was because of the country, was because of everyone came together, you know. And he's like, and now it's like everyone's like kind of torn apart over this. That's not Ashway. That's not Hopkinton. It's not. We had Huck Finn Day at the house. We don't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's a huge blow to this town.
Thank you for your
Sorry.
input, Kristen. I'm going to have to move on to the next caller. There are quite a few people who would like to speak in regards to this issue. If you have further questions about the project itself, you are always welcome to call our office. But thank you very
That's
much.
fine. That's my voice right now.
Thank you very much. Next person will be 5499. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. My name is Peter Squires. I'm an attorney representing with the law firm Arcillo, Tights and Rich in Providence. I'm representing Susan Haley and Robert and Judith Renenberg. They own property down at 37 Old Hopkinton Cemetery Road. And if you look on the plan you have, that's right across the street from the newly added solar panels to the south. I would just note before I go into my presentation that it has been an issue. It has impeded our ability to prepare for this hearing. So I think that's something the board should definitely consider when you act on this tonight. The first thing I'd like to raise.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
This is Sean Clough, acting town solicitor. If I could just have the commenter who's speaking right now, if he could just recite again who he is representing and their lot numbers, please.
Sure. I'm representing Susan Haley, Robert Brendenberg, and Judith Brendenberg. Their lot number is Assessor's Plat 22, Lot 56, and the street address is 37 Old Hopkinton Cemetery.
Thank you.
The first issue I'd raise is really a procedural issue, and it's a notice issue too. So the notice for tonight's public hearing was advertised as the planning board giving an advisory opinion to the town council on a request for a comprehensive plan and zoning map amendment, which was submitted by Fothergill. Now, the issue with that is that with the zoning ordinance amendment, yes, that is what the planning board's authority is to do. You are under the Zoning Enabling Act. It's your responsibility under statute to provide an advisory opinion to the town council based on whether the proposed amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan. But with regard to the comprehensive plan and the Comprehensive Planning and Land Use Act, the role of the planning board is not advisory. And in case the applicant's counsel is on the line, I'm going to cite the statute for him. It's Title 45, Chapter 22.2, Section 8, and subsection A1. This provides that the planning board, and I'm going to quote here, has the sole responsibility for performing all those acts necessary to prepare a comprehensive plan for a municipality. So based on that language, you don't advise on an applicant's request to amend the comprehensive plan. You have the sole responsibility for creating a comprehensive plan. And that's key. And it goes to the purpose for what a comprehensive plan is. And I'll try to be brief, but I'll give you a little history of the comprehensive planning to lay the groundwork for that. So prior to the enactment of the Comprehensive Planning and Land Use Act in 1988, Rhode Island courts would look at zoning ordinance amendments, and they basically, on an ad hoc basis, determine whether the amendment was spot zoning or was within a comprehensive plan, quote unquote, for the town. Now, the ad hoc nature of that inquiry was not best planning practices. And by passing this statute, the General Assembly created a mechanism to assure that all zoning ordinance amendments would be passed in accordance with a plan that was created ahead of time, before the application came in. So under the Comprehensive Planning Act, it's your job to create the comprehensive plan as the standard you use to measure zoning ordinance amendments off of. Now, if you were to allow an applicant to come in and request to amend the comprehensive plan, and now I'll stop and pause here for a minute. I know that in other towns, and perhaps in the past in this town, this procedure has been used, but by statute, it's not the right procedure. And if you allow this procedure to be used, where an applicant can be the impetus for a comprehensive plan amendment, which they then use to ask for a zoning ordinance amendment, you essentially have no standard with which to advise the town council on whether it's consistent with your comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is supposed to be that standard guideline to determine whether or not a use is allowed. It's not supposed to be amended every time an applicant comes in and they want to do something different. If you could do that, then there's really no reason to have a comprehensive plan. So I think that really creates an advertising issue because it's really advertised as only an advisory opinion to the town council, when in reality, this comprehensive plan amendment should not proceed at all unless the planning board votes to pass it. And really, it shouldn't. You can take advice from other parties. Many towns hire outside consultants to help them and the planning board propose comprehensive plan amendments. But at the end of the day, if the planning board does not vote to propose that amendment, then no comprehensive plan amendment should be made. So that's kind of the 100-foot procedural issue that I'd raise with this. But, you know, there are substantive issues as well. I know that your planner addressed the 100-foot, the general 100-foot setback for commercial industrial buildings from a residential zoning district. And I know that your solicitor's office has opined that that is overridden essentially by the solar ordinance amendment, and they rely on the method of statutory interpretation that the specific governs the general. I'm not going to get into that in too much detail because I know you have the opinion from your solicitor's office, but I just know for the record that I disagree with that. And the reason I disagree with it is because the specific versus general rule is not triggered here because these provisions are not inconsistent. On the one hand, you have a 25-foot setback for solar arrays from the property line, regardless of where the property line is. And on the other hand, you have a 100-foot setback from the residential zoning district. Now here, it just so happens because they're essentially spot zoning a commercial zone into a residential area that they need to comply with that 100-foot setback because they're right on the border with the residential district. So the second point that is really just a point of inquiry that I'd ask, I know that the applicant mentioned that the access was off of Crandall Road, and I just want to confirm that that is in fact going to be the only point of access, or whether or not there will be any additional access off of Old Hopkinton Cemetery Road. In summary, I think there are a number of procedural issues tonight, but the main issue is that this applicant is asking the town to take a one-off change to its comprehensive plan to essentially squeeze a non-residential use into what would otherwise be a residential zone. It's not appropriate as a matter of policy, and it's not appropriate according to the procedures set out in the Comprehensive Planning and Land Use Act. And then finally, the last procedural issue, which you've all hit on, which I won't belabor, but this new plan that was not available in the clerk's office brings solar panels real close to my client's property when it wouldn't otherwise be that close to my client's property. I think that's a big issue as well. So with that, I know you have a lot of people to get through. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that's the end of my speech.
Thank you. Next person,
Thank you, sir.
next member of the public, 2997. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Eric Bibler, Woodville Road in Hopkinton. I was going to mention some of the things that Peter Squires just mentioned. I think they're really glaring procedural issues. You just simply cannot send a notice to abutters for one set of plans and then come into a public hearing and entertain a completely different set of plans than the ones that they either received or were told was available in the town clerk's office. That's an issue. On the setback issue, Jim Lamphere, the town planner, referred to some misguided information or something that had been set in, and I know we have an opinion from the town solicitor. But I would just like to call, and I know that the planning board's going to feel obligated to follow that, but I would just like to call the planning board's attention to the fact that the PSES ordinance actually says that the minimum front, side, and rear setback applicable to permitted uses in the applicable zoning district shall apply to the PSES. The applicable zoning district would be commercial after it was rezoned. Okay? So then if you go to the zoning district use table and you look up the setbacks for a commercial lot, indeed, it does say 25 feet, and it also says 50 feet for, I think, front, 25 side and rear. But that provision in our zoning for commercial property has a footnote. It's footnoted with footnote number 1 and 2. And then footnotes 1 and 2 for every commercial property in the town of Hopkinton. It says that in the event that the commercial property abuts a residential property, in that instance, for every commercial property, including this one, then the setback is 100 feet. So I just find it completely maddening. There's no 25-foot setback next to PSES. I find it completely maddening that somehow, through some convoluted means, we can ignore the setback zoning provisions that are meant to protect our own residents from commercial development in every instance. So just moving ahead to the real issue at hand here, I agree, and I hope that you'll vote on this tonight. You know, I agree that the only issue at hand here is whether or not this is consistent with the comp plan. And I agree with Mr. Squires that there's no point in having a comp plan if you're going to contemplate spot zoning every time you receive a proposal from a developer. If you look at this map, it looks a lot like Skunk Hill. There are over 40 residential lots surrounding this development, There's no commercial property that I can see. The plan itself has another sort of a little, misdirection in it. You'll see multiple dimensions of the distance from the residents' homes that are abutters to the boundary line for the project itself. Those abutting residents own every inch of their property. The dimension that matters is the distance from their property, not the distance from their living room windows. The developer doesn't get credit for however far back from their own property lines their house is situated. I just want to close by saying that, here we are in Hopkinton, and I'm going to read some of the elements of the comp plan that apply that this planning board has cited in prior denials, prior adverse opinions. But I just want to note that last week I joined a conference call for the Cape Cod Commission, and it was on a similar topic. Cape Cod Commission is the planning agency that does all the planning and regulation for 15 towns on Cape Cod. And the regional policy plan for Cape Cod stipulates that they discourage or don't allow greenfield solar development, which is to say they discourage or disallow any solar development that involves cutting down of woods or putting it on undeveloped land, farmland, that sort of thing. Our comprehensive plan is not that specific, and we don't have ordinances that prohibit that. But what we do have, I think the planning board should be reminded of, we have numerous citations that have made by this board on previous solar projects as a reason to deny them of goals and objectives in the comp plan. And they include, number one, land use goal number one, to protect the quality of life and rural character of Hopkinton. Land use goal number four, preserve existing working farms of wildlife and wildlife habitat. Housing goal number one, Hopkinton will be characterized by safe, secure, and attractive residential neighborhoods. Goal NR1, to preserve, conserve, and protect the significant natural resources of Hopkinton as an endowment for the future of the town. Objective NR1, protect and manage important forest resources, wetland systems to meet the demands of recreation, water supply, wildlife habitat, forest products, and high quality environment. And policy PSF 15. Endorse future land development that is sustainable, energy efficient, and in accordance with the town's future land use map. This does terrible violence to the comprehensive plan. This proposal ignores all of these goals. I think it's significant, the numbering here, land use goal number one, the primary goal, to protect the quality of life and rural character of Hopkinton. These are all reasons that justify rejecting this request and delivering an adverse opinion, and this board has every right, with no further information on the zoning, the subdivision of the houses, the setbacks. There's nothing more you need to know. I propose that you take a vote and simply find that it's clearly not consistent with the comprehensive plan. It looks every bit as bad as all the other similar inappropriate proposals that you've denied, and I urge you to deny it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next member of the public, 4922, please state your name for the record.
Phil Brancher.
Thank you.
I own property. Old Hopkinton Cemetery Road. I own plots 55 and 55A. I went to the town hall and looked at the town hall's plan. That plan was different than this plan. If you look in the center of this plan where it says solar array, that plan in the town hall, that area to the right was much longer. Went underneath the right of way for the power lines. It went closer to the wetland. And down at 55A, it was non-existent and not too bad in 55. The other thing is, this revision was filed on June 11th. The letter was sent out by the town clerk on the 12th. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Brencher.
Next one.
Guest identified by the last four digits, 5653. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Robert Henninger. I'm at 24 Edgewood Avenue. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'd just like to say, first of all, I'm 100% opposed to this. It's absolutely ridiculous that we have to keep having meetings about these solar arrays going in our town. It's quite clear that the townspeople don't want this. The fact that they're going into residential zoned areas as commercial is absolutely ridiculous. You know, this is in a, protected area stated right on the actual plans themselves where it says primary protection zone for groundwater and wellhead protection. There's a stream in the, looks like the northeastern corner of this, which actually abuts the back of my property. And that's a direct contact to groundwater. My question is when something happens with these solar panels, or when the land is disturbed back there and something stirred up that may have been dumped years ago when it was a farm, what's to keep all these chemicals from running directly into the groundwater source and contaminating all our wells? I know that there's catchment basins that are supposed to go in, but water seeks its own level. It will eventually get into the groundwater system and pollute our water. Aside from that, these are wetlands. There's animals back there. We've had enough distribution already of all of our wildlife across Hopkinton. We don't need to lose more sections of woods that are a safe haven for all of our wildlife. You know, there's bobcats back here, there's deer back here, there's pileated woodpeckers, you name it, they're all back here. And to basically knock down 15 acres of forest, shove a fence around it that allows, maybe if you're lucky, rabbits to utilize it, is absolutely ridiculous. Furthermore, I've seen what's happened at these other solar sites, and it seems like no matter what the plan actually is, it always seems to be gone against. I mean, Maxon Hill alone, look at what the devastation that's been happened. It's been clear cut right up to people's backyards with one tree left between, a person's property line and a massive solar array. I realize that there's wetlands here and there's boundaries stated on this map, but I am in serious doubt that this particular company will adhere to what they are supposed to. That being said, if somehow this happens to go through, which I pray to God it doesn't, I will be in contact with DEM Wetlands and make sure that none of this is touched. But I urge the planning board to deny this. And the fact that the plans have been changed last minute, and none of the townspeople surrounding this area, none of the others were aware of these changes alone should scrap its entire plan. And if that is the case, I suggest that it has to fall under the new solar ordinance, not the old solar ordinance when it was originally submitted.
Thank you. Yes, last four digits, 8225. Please state your name for the record.
Yeah,
Yeah, hi, my name is Tim Stedman. Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm a butter. I'm on the backside of Edgewood Avenue, 28, and I am 100% against this solar project. For starters, we have so many solar projects in town of Ashaway and Hopkinton right now that it's not Ashaway any longer. You drive down Route 3 and all you see is these commercial power plants that they say they're not power plants, but they're power plants. And they just don't belong in our town. You know, if they were to put them in, you know, gravel banks or farms that they're already been cut, they're not clear cutting, you know, hundreds and hundreds of acres that they keep putting in solar plants in, and the wildlife has to go somewhere. And they just don't belong in residential neighborhoods. And it seems like everybody goes to the meetings, everybody complains about them, but somehow they're getting squeezed through. And this one in particular, when you're trying to, it's just got bad news written all over it. So hopefully the zoning board will take everybody's opinions into account and absolutely deny this project. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Guest, last four digits, 8222. Please state your name for the record. Guest 8222, please state your name for the record. Lowering the hand. Guest 8281, please state your name for the record.
Jean Clementi.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I'm live on Tamaqua Road, and I'm urging the board to reject this project. I'm totally against any more solar development to go into the town. Against the clear cutting of any more forests. I'm concerned about our groundwater, wetlands, and the quality of our life here in general. I think we have had enough solar come into this town, and it's. I'm just hoping that they don't put this through and they realize that enough is enough, and this is not what the people in this town wanted, and this isn't certainly why I moved here a year and a half ago, and I feel like, you know, put this on a parking lot somewhere out in the middle of nowhere where it's not ruining the quality of life. And I thought everyone knew that you don't take down a tree, you know, to put up solar panels. Just doesn't seem right to me. It defeats the purpose, and that's about all I have to say.
Thank you. Guest, last four digits, 6331. Please state your name for the record.
Yeah, my name's David Beaver. Can you hear me?
Yes, could you repeat your name? I apologize.
Yeah, David Geber. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I too am against it. I live in a situation that's very, very similar to this. And for the very same reasons that people have brought up tonight, I'm against this one. But something was brought up earlier that I'm just curious about. So my question is for the applicant, I suppose, and that is, what? Can somebody mute this?
That's ridiculous. This is Carolyn. Let's get this under control.
I'm trying, Carolyn.
Oh, who is that?
Yes.
I don't know, Carolyn.
Yes.
Thanks, Dahlia.
Yeah. Okay. My question is, it was mentioned earlier that the size of this 13 acre, 3.9 megawatts is the size of this. But the question I have really is, and it's true for all of these projects, what's the minimal size that makes this project viable? Apparently it's viable at this size. The question I have really is, what's the minimal size before this no longer becomes viable? Thank you.
Steven started. I'll do my best to answer that. Not being a solar expert, there's a lot of considerations that go into that. It's all of the net potential costs, all of the potential construction costs, outlays, property acquisition, landowner fees. It'd be hard for me to, off the cuff, give you that answer. We will certainly take under advisement everyone's opinion here tonight and look to address those concerns. Obviously, one of those concerns is size and distance from a butter's property lines.
Yeah. The concept that has prompted me to ask that question is a general one for this town is when will the town be satisfied with enough solar arrays to satisfy its fiscal requirements? I've never gotten an answer for that, but this one contributes to that. And so I'm just wondering what the size of this project must be before the folks that want to build it are finding it no longer viable to build it. You know, you folks should be able to, and in fact, someone made that calculation to make this proposal to begin with. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, there's one last member of the public, guest 8222. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Joe Moreau from Old Depot Road. Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate it. It is so refreshing to hear an attorney bring up some points that we've been saying for 2 years fighting these solar projects. When you talk about not being consistent with the comp plan, the 100-foot setback, and the spot zoning, I agree wholeheartedly with what the attorney said. I also want to state that this is the most confusing presentation in the 2 years that I've been a part of. It's just ridiculous. The other point I want to point out is that someone else mentioned this. If it's a new set of plans, there should be a notification. It should fall under the new solar ordinance. The last point I want to mention, I believe the attorney said when he was talking about a vegetated buffer that there's so many pine trees there. I hope he's not considering using existing pine trees. As we all know, you see mostly trunk and the growth is at the top of these pine trees. A vegetated buffer is not the trunk of pine trees. I would suggest that the attorney, as was pointed out to me at the last meeting, do some homework and do some research and come back to answer all of these questions. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Talia, do we have anyone else in the audience?
There are 3 other people. These last 3 people are going to be the last 3 people who will be able to speak during this period. I'm saying this now. I'm going to read off the last 4 digits. It's 2038, 7747, and 6836. Those will be the last 3 participants who will be able to speak in regards to this issue. We have
Thank you, Talia.
a number of other agenda items that we have to get through. Guest 2038, please state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Alan Ally, and it's 21 Old Hopkinton Cemetery Road.
All right.
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, when the solar panels go in, they strip the land. They take the topsoil away. And what's left is the solar panels and ground cover. When the solar panels expire in 20 years, the technology is probably so antiquated, they're not going to even replace them. You're just left with this barren piece of land. If they want to replant trees there, that's going to cost quite a bit of money. I understand bonds are put up to do that, but it'll be another 20 years before it ever has the scar gone from the trees being taken down. Also, living on this lower section, we get runoff. So if they're going to guarantee that I'm not going to have any problem with my well water, that's an important thing for me, or runoff in general. I appeal to your just general nature. You want to look out your back window and see 25 feet away or 20 yards away rather, just solar panels. I don't think any of us do. We came to this area because it was residential, zoned residential, not commercial, and, expected it to stay that way. That's all I have to say for right now. And the valuation of property as well. I mean, people are going to want to, if we ever sell this place, we're going to be losing money there because of the SCAR.
Thank you. Guest 7747, please state your name for the record.
Brian Ward.
Thank you.
So if the whole property is zoned commercial and they're only going to build roughly 15 acres of solar panels, what happens down the road to the rest of the commercial property? Can they add more solar panels at their leisure? Can stores be built? I grew up on the property. I'm totally against it, but what happens to the whole commercial property versus the 15 acres?
Stephen Sturdit, from the applicant's perspective, we would not be able to add any additional panels beyond those allowed by the development plan review process and the town council amendment. And it is our proposal that the wetlands would remain untouched, and that there would be a significant portion, or there's a portion of the site adjacent to those wetlands which will remain as they are now.
So are you saying that all of this will be documented, that they will not add solar panels ever again beyond what they're proposing?
There would be no additional solar panels added to the site, no additional modules added to the site. Can a module be swapped out for a newer technology? Yes, but there would be no additional modules added to the site beyond what would be allowed in the development plan review process.
And that'll all be all documented?
Yes, sir.
This is Carolyn Light. I'd like to add some clarification to that statement. Is it appropriate for me to do that?
It's okay with me.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
So the applicant has, this is just for clarification for the residents. The applicant has proposed to change residential land, RF80, to commercial at the end of life, which is proposed to be 20 years, but we all know that the average life of a solar farm could be as much as 25 to 30 years. Once the end of life has come to that solar project, the land is zoned commercial. It is not going to revert back to residential RF80.
Right.
And once it's zoned commercial, it's a commercial opportunity. So the person owning the land and the project has the right to reinvest their solar aspirations to continue the project life. They also have the option of ending it and decommissioning it. And I would suggest that we have Jim Lanphier or the attorney present add further clarification if there are questions on that.
Okay. Well, first of all, I've listened to the whole meeting from the start, and there's been a lot of, I'll look into that. I'll make sure that's okay. So how can you guys vote tonight to move forward without documentation in writing for all the unknowns? That's my first question. Secondly, when I called the town hall and spoke to the town clerk on the 18th of this month, of June, excuse me, she sent me a copy of the plan. Then this past Thursday, the 25th, she said to me, we were introduced to a new plan today, meaning that day, Thursday the 25th, into the town hall. So has everybody seen that plan, or is this all the controversy tonight that everybody hasn't gotten the new plan, and that's where we're voting or looking to vote on tonight? Hello?
Hi, this is Carolyn. I'd like to make an additional comment for spinning off of something that Jim Lancier brought up, and something that completely needs to be addressed by the solicitor, is that the plans that the planning board are looking at are not noted as revised plans. It is dated January 4th, 2019. So if these, I would like to know what the true date of these plans are, because as Jim stated, there was a plan from January 2019 that was grandfathered in, and these plans are not the same as those grandfathered plans. So I think there's some legal issues involved here that need to be tended to. I'll leave it at that.
Can I ask this? Thursday the 25th, the town clerk sent me an email and said that a new plan was submitted that day. I have the email showing a revised plan of where the solar panels were going. Is that the new plan that everybody is looking at or not?
I have no idea.
That is the plan
The
that
plan,
Yep.
the plan the plan that the planning department provided to the board members is dated January 4th, 2019. And Jim pointed out that the plans we're looking at should have a revision date on them. And that's what we need to tend to. And it's out of our purview to review that.
Jim's going to
If I can speak up, there's a revision date on the title block.
So if we look above that date Carolyn mentions, if we look above the date that Carolyn mentions, it says survey added 6/11/2020. So her question in my mind stands. Is this the original that we're looking at, or is this the 2019 plan that we're looking at?
Well, my question is, when the town clerk emailed me on last Thursday, the 25th, her exact words were, we got a new revised plan in the office today, which would have been Thursday, the 25th, last Thursday. Is that the most current plan? Is the attorney still on board?
He should be.
Steve inserted, I'm still here.
So is that the plan, the most recent plan last Thursday was submitted to the town hall?
There was it's a plan, we submitted our plan as, to the planning department, I believe on, it was either June 9th or 10th or 11th, I can't recall. There was a disconnect between that plan walk going, to the town clerk. So I apologize for that confusion. There was no intent on our regard to have anything other than this plan set, the appropriate plan set, and the most up-to-date and most accurate plan set provided to all parties, and the proper plan was advertised with this hearing. And that is the one that you can obtain through the agenda and through the planning department.
Okay, so my mom lives at 20 Amelia Street, lot 47, and received all this documentation prior to the 18th of June. On the 18th of June, I called and spoke to the town clerk. She emailed me a copy of the plan. Now, you said it was the 11th of June that the most recent one was done. Then On Thursday, June 25th, she sent me a newly revised plan and said this was entered into our office today. I can send you the email. So I'm just confused about, you're saying the 11th, I called on the 18th, then on the 25th, there was a different plan submitted.
I said plans were submitted to the planning department. You're speaking about your conversations with the town clerk. So that's where the discrepancy is.
Okay. So are the ones that I'm reviewing on the 25th that she sent me the latest?
If it is the same plan that has the survey added and layout adjusted 4/3/2020 and is sheet labeled C1 and is the plan set that was available through the agenda and was posted by the planning department, then yes.
Okay. The last question I have, because I know there's another person. So my mom, supposedly you have a 25-foot setback, but the panels are going to be 400 and some feet, according to the attorney, when my younger brother went to meet with you this Saturday. How much from the panels to my mom's property line will be cleared? Can you go all the way to the 25-foot setback?
I can speak to that.
Kind of
I can speak to that if you want. Yeah, no, that's north of the array, so there aren't any shade trees there. There'd be no reason to clear that.
Well, will that be in writing?
What you're seeing, the hatch is that's the setback that's required to be maintained, vegetated. But to the north of the property, there's not going to be any shade trees.
Right. So, but does that come in writing, or you guys just say it and then do what you?
Yeah. So I can kind of address a lot of the whether or not it's been in writing has been asked a couple of times, so I can kind of speak to that. And Steve can step in if I misspeak, because it's kind of borders on the legal process and the engineering process. So what we're showing here is the concept plan. Assuming that the zoning change and all that went through, the next design step would be to come back to the planning board with design plans, right? So all these things, like the question you're asking about whether or not it's going to clear, the actual limit to clearing, and some of these other questions about screening and changing the array layout, that would all have to be presented to the planning board for the actual design plan review, right? So this is the first step in the whole process. I don't know if that was explained earlier in the meeting. So this is the first step in the whole process. Once the there's nothing related to design until the zoning's changed. So if the zoning's changed, then we come back with a more detailed design that addresses the concerns that are being brought up today and any concerns that are brought up by the town council. So that's your writing, is the actual design plan review plans that are approved. That's what documents everything.
Okay. So we have to back up to the first question, because then somebody interrupted. Can you add more solar panels down the road?
And again, so that would, what the plans that are permitted is what Stephen mentioned. So assuming we get to the design plan review stage, those plans would have an array and a fence and a footprint. Once that's approved, that's it. That's what's approved. So if anything needed to be, say further down the line, somebody wanted to add more, it would need a new permit. So it wouldn't be allowed as part of this permit.
Right, but because it's zoned commercial, all it needs is a permit to extend.
They have to come back to the planning board. There'd be another process just like this.
Okay.
Actually, and to get into more details, I mean, this is what National Grid's allowed, so there's many layers of revisions that would be needed.
I'm very naive to all of this. Why wouldn't they, I'm just throwing it out, but why wouldn't they only make the area that you're putting the solar panels in zone commercial and leave the rest residential?
Because you'd have to subdivide the property.
Well, they're subdividing it anyway. That's how they're splitting the two houses off.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't the
You're only
town
allowed
just,
to-
wait a minute.
Go ahead.
Why doesn't it just say, we'll give you, if they're going to do this? I'm against it, but if it has to happen, why doesn't the town just say, we'll give you the 15, whatever it is, acres, commercial, and the rest of it has to stay residential? So that down the road, if they decided to expand, they've got to go through this again.
If I may, you're only allowed to have so much of a percentage of the property on commercial property as solar panels. You have to have some of it that is not. If I'm making it as clear as I'm thinking it. You can't put it on the whole property. There's a certain percentage that you're allowed to use, and if they zone just that 15 acres, then they would have to put a much smaller piece. Am I making it the way that I'm thinking about it?
What is that percentage?
Jim Lanfear, could you jump in here?
Thank you, Ron. Jim Lanfear, Town Planner. I'd love to jump in, and I'm gonna attempt to abbreviate this discussion if I can, or facilitate the end of it, because we're approaching 2 hours on this particular subject right now. We have two major applications to follow it. So with me jumping in, I'd like to stress to the planning board one thing. It's a partial reiteration of what I just said, but I want to clarify it and emphasize it. Tonight, you're being presented with the opportunity to provide an advisory opinion which will help the town council make a decision on this matter. And basically, it is, does the planning board want to make a change to the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance that will ultimately serve to change the nature of the character of that neighborhood? So I would suggest that the planning board not get hung up on the details of this site plan that's here, but look at this from a 30,000 foot level and say, is this area, and there may be some areas in town that are zoned RFR 80, which could be rezoned to accommodate a solar array, which would not adversely impact hardly anyone. So I guess my question is to the planning board, in this particular instance, do you see making these changes to the comp plan and the zoning ordinance drastically, altering the nature of the character of this neighborhood in such a fashion that we don't want to tolerate it? That is the question that you're being provided with. Do you want to make a high-level comprehensive plan change or not? If you don't think it's suitable for that area of town with the people that live around it, then your decision is very simple here tonight. So that's what I would what I would offer you.
I'm going to allow one last member of the public to speak, as I stated that I would allow them to do so, but please be brief. Last four digits, 6836. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, it's Ron Bryant.
Thank you.
A couple of questions. One of them, in the legend, it says that front setback is 60 feet. They took liberties, is a nice way of putting it, 60 feet on the driveway. There should be a minimum of 60 feet from all those residences along that long side. Early in the presentation, it said that everything was going to be underground. Yet it shows along Crandall Lane, you have those large poles that you see at all the other solar sites as well. So that it's not underground. It is in fact on poles. Everything is underground is inside the fenced-in area where in theory you can't see it anyway. And then the last one, you have 60-foot setback for the rear. On that property 1A and B, you've got 25 feet of setback, not 50 feet of setback. So in my mind, this is demonstrative of that all of the rules will be bent and broken as necessary to maximize the value of the solar field, not for what's best for the town or the neighborhood. In light of this in black and white, that all these rules are being stretched to the absolute limit, I strongly suggest the planning board vote no, even though obviously you'll be overridden by the town council. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Planning board members, thoughts, concerns, questions?
Mr. Chairman, Jim Lanfear, Town Planner. I would suggest that if there are no more members of the public wishing to speak, we could close the public hearing and then have a deliberation on the town council. I mean, on the planning board, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that sounds fine. I would entertain a motion to close the hearing.
This is Carolyn. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do we have a second?
This is Emily. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to close the public meeting, the public hearing, and we have a second. And we can vote. Carolyn, please.
Are we supposed to make a motion or something?
You're supposed to
You
vote.
just did.
Right now, you're just going to close the public hearing.
This would be a vote to close the public hearing, Karen. We have a
Oh,
motion.
I'm sorry.
We need a
I'm
5-person vote here.
Well,
4-person vote.
4.
I'm sorry. This is Carolyn, and I vote yes to close the public hearing.
Emily?
Yes, to close the public hearing.
Emily, yes.
And Perlwitz, yes. Okay, the public hearing is hereby closed. Discussion from the planning board members.
I have no additional comments. This is Carolyn.
Okay. Emily and Keith?
No additional comments from me.
This is Emily. I have a bunch of things. First, I think the discussion just now, it really didn't matter what plan we saw today. I would think that the plan presented for this property to propose a solar array of this size in this neighborhood will be inconsistent with the Hopkinton Comprehensive Plan. So while the procedural issues are really important, and it's really important that when a developer or an applicant comes to the planning department with a plan that it is well conceived, and this one truly was not, it's really important that we have a high standard so that the public isn't confused, that things aren't changing when the applicant gets additional information, and that everyone has proper notice to be able to react to plans like these, which are, as Jim noted, huge changes to the character of our neighborhoods. So I just want to reiterate that there's a number of reasons why I think this is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. One, it is not consistent with the conservation of Hopkinton natural resources, particularly the protection of the ground and surface waters, which is comprehensive plan goal CON1. It's not consistent with the conservation of Hopkinton's major natural features and of its traditional rural character. That's plan goal CON2. It's not consistent with the preservation, conservation, and protection of the significant natural resources of Hopkinton as an endowment for the future of the town. That's goal NR1. Notably, the eastern portion of this property is wetlands, as numerous commenters noted, and there are soils classified as prime agriculture and farmland in the northwest corner. It's not consistent with the intent for Hopkinton to be characterized by safe, secure, and attractive residential neighborhoods. That's goal H1. It's It's not consistent with the protection of the quality of life and rural character of Hopkinton. That's goal LU1. As a property in Ashaway and near the historic Hopkinton Cemetery, it's not consistent with the preservation of the historic character of the villages and surrounding undeveloped areas. That's goal LU2. It's not consistent with the preservation of existing farms, wildlife, and wildlife habitat. That's goal LU4. If you did want to try to look at some of the positives for a development like this in economic terms, this project does not address the town's long-term energy costs. It does not decrease the town's energy dependence. It does not create local jobs. The value of the forest in Hopkinton in terms of both the ecosystem services they provide to us and how they save the residents and the town money are really important to consider here. The Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management just put out a report about the value of our forest. Each acre of forest that drains into a public water source, for example, all 13 acres in this property that are going to be developed, each acre filters 543,000 gallons of drinking water per year, which meets the needs of 19 people, which has an average annual value of $2,500 per acre. So we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars, important ecosystem service that this land is serving its neighborhood. We can go on and on. Air filtration, the carbon storage that these types of forests hold, and how much cooling they provide in hot, dry weather. One tree can reach the equivalent of 5 air conditioners running for 20 hours. I encourage you to read about some of these really important services. The stormwater absorption that we've observed, even just in the last few days with the very intense storms that we've had in town. If we continue to remove forests of these size, we will be paying literally and figuratively for decades. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Now, in the comprehensive plan, as Emily said, there are a lot of places that this doesn't follow the guidelines. There's actually only 2 places that encourage or promote energy self-sufficiency using renewable energy conservation. That's policy NR5. And the next one is encourage renewable energy policy PSF 17. The negatives, in my opinion, greatly outweigh any positives that this contribute to the town. That being said, let's vote on whether or not we're going to send this with a positive recommendation or negative recommendation. Okay, planning board members, could we vote, please?
Motion. Got to make a motion.
Oh, yes. Do we have a motion to proceed or not proceed? Anyone?
Okay, this is Emily. I'll make a motion to provide a negative advisory opinion to the town council for the request for comprehensive plan zoning map amendments on AP2 Lot 1, 10A Crandall Lane, number B, Centrica Business Solutions and Maitland Fothergill applicants. For the reasons stated, inconsistency with the conservation of Hopkinton natural resources, goal CON1, inconsistency with the conservation of Hopkinton's major natural features and traditional rural character, goal CON2, inconsistency with preservation, conservation, and protection of the significant natural resources of Hopkinton as an endowment for the future of the town, goal NR1, inconsistency with the intent for Hopkinton to be characterized by safe, secure, and attractive residential neighborhoods, goal H1, inconsistency with the protection of quality of life and rural character of Hopkinton, goal LU1, inconsistency with the preservation of the historic character of the villages and surrounding undeveloped areas, goal LU2, inconsistency with the preservation of existing farms, wildlife, and wildlife habitat, goal LU4.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Keep them below second the motion. Thank you, Emily.
Okay, thank you. Voting, please. Carolyn?
I am voting against this project development. I'm a no.
Thank you. Emily?
Just, really, you should be careful how you vote, okay?
You're
voting on a motion. You're voting on a motion that was made by Emily. You either approve that motion or you not approve that motion.
If I may step in for just a second, the motion on the floor was to have the planning board make a negative recommendation. So just to explain, a aye vote or in favor would be to send a negative recommendation to the town council. A nay vote would be to vote against sending a negative recommendation to the town council.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you. This is Carolyn. Let me clarify. I am voting yes to the motion that is on the floor.
Thank you. Emily?
Yes.
Thank you. Keith?
Very emphatic yes. I agree with the motion to deny.
Thank you. Ron Prelwood's here. I also vote yes. Thank you.
Okay, good. Let's get rid of that.
Now, I believe at this time it would be the time to turn this back over to Chairman Diorio.
Waiting in the wings.
Okay, I'd like to return control of the meeting to Chairman Diorio. Thank you, everyone. Welcome.
Thank you. All right, next victim.
Okay, moving forward. Next item on the agenda under old business. Approval of the reforestation plan and setting of reforestation cash escrow bond, major land development, photovoltaic solar energy system AP4, lot 25, 310 Main Street, 310 Hopkinton Main Street, 310 Hopkinton Main Realty LLC, successor in interest to Maxon Hill LLC, and GD Hopkinton Main 1 LLC, successor in interest to Rhode Island Solar Renewable Energy 2 LLC, care of Anthony Del Vicario.
If you are an applicant or an expert speaking on behalf of this, please press *9.
This is Carolyn Light. I'd like to make a statement.
Yes, Carolyn.
Okay, I am recusing myself from this portion of our meeting, and I'd like to give a little bit of insight as to why I am doing that.
Go ahead.
Okay, and earlier this evening, an email was sent to Mr. Diorio, Mr. Lamphere, and our solicitor, Mr. McAllister, was CC'd on it. It was the formal recusal from the Maxon Hill hearing, and I'd like to give you guys a little bit of insight as to what occurred. In 2018, my husband and I decided that we were going to support an organization called Hopkinton Residents for Responsible Planning. We gave a financial contribution to the organization to support their efforts to bring attention to what we at that time perceived to be incorrect movements by the town council. Since then, I decided that it was my responsibility to better support my community by participating in planning board activities. Ultimately, I was supported unanimously by the town council to become a permanent member to the planning board. In November of 2019, an email letter from Attorney Mancini was sent to all the members of the town council and the members of the planning board and our solicitor, outlining the reasons why Carolyn Light should recuse herself from the Maxon Hill project. hearings. I'd like to point out that a letter that I sent to the Ethics Commission explained my position was about the behavior of the town council, and it was not in opposition to solar development. A letter was eventually served to me by a constable the following week. Mind you, the planning board and the town council had this letter for probably 5 days before a constable came to my home and served me. And I'd just like to point out this letter is going to be available to anybody who would like to read it, since it was eventually leaked to the press. But I'll just give you some bullet points that stand out. Mrs. Light's conduct is irrepressible. Ms. Light failed either negligently or purposefully to indicate her financial contribution to the Ethics Board. This statement in the communication was not true. If Mr. Mancini had paid better attention, he would have noted that in the second paragraph to my letter to the Ethics Commission, I disclosed that information. Additional comments: extreme levels of bias and violations of fundamental tenets of Rhode Island general laws. Another comment: conduct and actions of Mrs. Light are unprofessional and prejudicial, going beyond an appearance of impropriety. Points out that I can be prosecuted in Rhode Island Superior Court. If I don't recuse myself, then the petitioner reserves its right to proceed to Superior Court for a declaration of the respective parties' rights. With my interest in my community and my support for our community, I'm not going to taint the hearing tonight by participating in the hearing. I'm formally recusing myself. I trust that the planning board has the intelligence, the ethics, the moral stability, and all of the information they need to make an appropriate decision on behalf of the town of Hopkinton. Thank you, and I'm signing off.
Very good, Carolyn. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So as we jump into this application, perhaps I could impose on Mr. Lampier to just give us a little bit of an introduction before we delve into the facts.
Sure. Let me attempt to summarize what we have. In your packet, we provided you with a whole ton of information.
Yeah.
But the charge for the planning board tonight is first to approve a reforestation plan and then approve a dollar amount to implement that plan. Now, what we've seen provided to us in the past was a reforestation plan that was dated back in June, I believe, of 2019. Yep. That plan was amended with a date on it, October 3rd, 2019. It was prepared by Mr. Mark Tremblay. And on page 5 of that amended plan, he estimated the cost of that to be $96,276 with a 20% cost estimate, contingency cost, which brought it to a total of $115,531. So that is the amended plan that we have with a cost estimate. Now, then went out and procured the services of Mr. Scott Hobson, who took a look at that amended plan to see if it's adequate. And that determination is in your packet as well. It was a Crossman memo dated November 25th, 2019. So we have someone who prepared a plan, the amended plan, someone, a biologist who critiqued the plan and approved it. We have dollar amounts associated with it. Crossman went out and next procured the services of a Christopher Riley from Sweet Birch Consulting, who did his own independent third-party cost estimate to implement that amended plan. And the total of that, including a 20% contingency cost, came to $136,645.38. So those are basically the numbers that we have to come up to implement this plan. And I would ask the planning board to consider those as a starting point. I'm sure we must have representatives of the application here to speak to this as well. So I'll let them take over from here. But that's basically, in a nutshell, what the planning board has to deliberate on tonight. Thank you.
So once again, are the applicant and or their representatives online and ready to present?
They are.
Let's have it.
Whoever would like to speak first from the
Sure.
applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. John Mancini, good evening. Glad to be with you, and hopefully everyone is safe and staying safe. Mr. Lanfear did an excellent job in giving a recitation of the facts, and I just want to add a few other points. We have two experts this evening. One is Mark Clay, who, as Mr. Lanfear noted, prepared the plan and has been working with us with respect to the restoration plan, along with the numbers that established the restoration bond. I also have Nicole Malafani, who has been with the project from the beginning. She's with Sage Engineering, and she can also enlighten us with some other points to the restoration plan, and as well as answer any questions. Importantly, this plan was reviewed by your consultant, your peer reviewer, Crossman Engineering. In conjunction with Mark Tremblay, the plan and the restoration bond was also reviewed. And then Crossman Engineering and Mr. Tremblay elected to choose a third-party independent reviewer, and that is Sweet Birch Consultant. They further reviewed the plan, and they developed a restoration bond number in the amount of $136,645.38. We don't disagree with that number. We accept it. We don't disagree with any changes or comments made by Sweet Birch Consulting. We also accept the made by Crossman Engineering. We know that this has been since October of 2019, where it started at 115,000. Crossman also did another cross-section and conceptual cost estimate plan in December of 2019 in the amount of $224,113, and that was again further reviewed by Mr. Tremblay and Sweet Birch Consulting. So with that, I have Mr. Tremblay with us. He's on the line. I think it makes sense for him to walk through A, the process, and B, the numbers itself. And he, I think, could probably for the board some of the variations that may have caused the change number, why his original number was 115, and then Sweet Birch recommended 136,000. So with that, unless the board has any questions of me or the process in which we undertook to comply these numbers, we're prepared to have Mr. Tremblay speak further on.
That's fine. Please proceed.
Good evening. This is Mark Tremblay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so yes, I put together this reforestation plan of mine, the original one, a year and a half ago or so, and amended it after one of the planning board hearings to incorporate some additional information that was from the input at the meeting, and that resulted in my October 3rd amended and cost estimate. And that basically increased the amount of the contingency to 20% and incorporated a couple of other cost factors in there. And then after Crossman Engineering had their engineering perspective applied to this, they ended up with some much higher labor costs than Mr. Riley and I had determined from the USDA cost estimates. And they also included removal of the tree tubes that are part of the process. So there's several steps to the reforestation plan, as you can see if you've had time to review the plan, but it includes a supervising forester to oversee the project. It involves purchasing the plants and some 4-foot tall tree tubes that you put around the plants to protect them from what is very likely going to be deer browse problems. The labor and the equipment, trucks and whatnot, or a hand planting crew, which this is not very common in southern New England, and I had to go abroad, so to speak, down south, and I used to work in the state of Mississippi, and I used to supervise and inspect planting crews back in another lifetime in my early years as a forester for the state of Mississippi. And this is my experience, and I seriously doubt there's any other forester here in Rhode Island that has that similar experience. But this is how I based my estimate, is that there are companies that have contracting tree planting crews that travel around the country, and they plant trees down south in the winter, and they come up and they plant trees in Maine and Nova Scotia and different places during the spring. So the idea would be to grab one of those crews at their rates, which is where I got my labor rates, which is much different than what you would pay a landscaper, local landscaper to plant trees. It's certainly not the same type of operation. And someone on the planning board brought up.
Hi, Kasu.
Hello? I'm sorry, somebody was.
Are you there?
Yes, I apologize. Continue.
Okay. Someone on the planning board brought up the local union requirements, which could be a factor, perhaps 25, 30 years from now, perhaps even more so, who knows. But so that factor would have to be included. Probably hiring a supervisor from a local union to supervise these planting crews would be likely the resolution to that. So we did factor that in and increase the labor rate. So one thing that is still that is included, and maybe speaks to a little bit of the difference between my estimate and Mr. Riley's estimate and the Crossman estimate, was the cost of removing some of those tree tubes in the future. 2, 3, 4 years after they're planted, you often will have to go through and strip those plastic tree tubes off so they don't choke the tree as the tree does develop. So there is some additional cost for that, which would be factored in. Are there any questions as to how I developed the plan and what those costs are?
Planning board members, any questions of this expert?
None for me.
Yeah, Keith Lindelof here. One question. The Crossman proposal mentions, about the removing of the tubing and all that, and the other proposals don't. What happens to the tubing if we don't take those out?
Basically, plastic basically degrades in sunlight. So there are some cases where if you don't remove the tubing, you might have a little bit of ingrown wire or tubing which could girdle the tree down the road. So that's the idea as you go through. It's not necessarily the tubing itself, it's the wire that holds the tubing and the stake around the tree. And
proposing we just leave it all there?
No, what you would do is you just go through and clip the wires and and knock off any tubing that is still on the tree. So I would recall
Is there a cost for that in your estimate?
in my estimate, there was not. It was something that I had overlooked, and that was brought up by the Crossman engineering firm, and they had included a cost of $16,000 to do that. And that's you know, it's high, but it's reasonable. It's about 10,000 of them you got to walk through. You got to have a crew of 2 or 3 guys just walking through, cutting wire for, you know, maybe a week's worth of time over for 10,000 of these trees. But they had a cost of $16,000 for doing that. So if you add that to my cost estimate, you'd end up with about $130,000, which is pretty close to what Sweet Birch's cost is.
Well, I'm reading line 7 on Crossman, says removal of installation of tree tubing, stakes, and ties, $77,000. Am I looking at the wrong line?
What's the date on your spreadsheet?
It's November 25th.
Oh, they revised that. That's been revised on December 13th is the sheet that I have. That was revised down to $16,000 for the removal, and the removal of installation requirement, $16,000. And wait a minute, installation. Their original cost estimate had the installation of these tree tubes, and my planting costs included the labor for installing those tree tubes. So the difference between the two numbers was the December 13th Crossman spreadsheet, which you should have. Mr. Lamphere, do you have that?
There was a conceptual engineer's cost estimate provided by Crossman. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, but what's the date on it?
November 26th.
Oh, that was the original. I met with Crossman, and we went through all the items and removed. He ended up removing several items that were beyond the scope of this reforestation plan, and adjusted the numbers of the actual numbers of tree tubes that needed to be done, a couple other things, and their bottom line on December 13th was $224,000 and change. That was their revised estimate based on and that was decided at the last in-person planning board meeting we had. Would have been early December. We were instructed to meet with Crossman, review because we were so far apart, and review their numbers. And, you know, an engineer is going to have a whole different perspective on a tree planting project than a forester, I would suppose. So anyway, we came up with a much more reasonable, more accurate number, and then Sweet Birch Consulting was also hired on top of that to do his report.
Well, I don't have a revised number from Crossman. I have their original one they did by an engineer, Doug Allen did, I believe, was $436,000. It's quite off the mark from what you prepared, Mr. Tremblay.
Right.
Okay, so what I have is on page 5 of your amended reforestation plan. Okay, that's what I have. $115,000 is the total bond amount suggested. So that's
that we had proposed in the amended plan, right. And we reviewed that at your December planning board meeting, and we were and you asked us to sit down with Crossman and compare notes and go through what their estimate was, and I mean, because 4 times the amount is just obviously obviously we were talking about apples and oranges. So we got on the same page with the work items that were in the reforestation plan, and they came up with 224.
Okay, so I don't have that spreadsheet in front of me. The only thing I have is at some point somebody called for an independent third party to take a look at this, besides Crossman staff themselves, and that was Sweet Birch Consulting. So, so that came in at 136. So I don't have the other one that you and Crossman arrived at.
Jim, that was emailed. This is John Mancini. That was emailed to you on December 16, 2020, and it's the revised Crossman Engineering. It looks just like the November spreadsheet, but it's just revised, dated December 13, 2019. If you don't have that, I'm sure Crossman can easily and readily make that available to you. And then what happened following that is Crossman then engaged with, along with Mr. Tremblay, Sweet Birch Consultant, and that's where we got the number of 136. But if you're missing the December 13, 2019, that's a crucial document that Crossman is your engineer. I mean, they're your peer reviewer. It would be very simple to receive that.
Maybe I
missed. In fact,
must have got by.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, you might want to. I mean, our understanding is I think there was a response from you about getting a third-party independent engineer. But if the board doesn't have that, then I have no problem in making sure the board gets that so this is complete, because this is an intricate step into this process here.
Well, let me ask
you.
And
you should have.
Are you in favor of accepting that number?
That was which number?
33, you said.
So we're amenable to the 136,645. If you want us to accept the 224,119, you know, that's up to your. If your peer reviewer is saying that they prefer the 225 over the 136, then we'd want to know why, because they're the ones that appointed Sweet Birch Consulting. We don't have any indication from Crossman that they disagree with that number.
The report that I have from Sweet Birch doesn't have a date on it. Do you know off the top of your head when that was prepared, the date on that?
This is Christopher Riley, Sweet Birch Consulting. I prepared this, I believe, in late January 31st, I believe.
Okay. Well, I guess the first step is, do we have an amended landscape reforestation plan that the board is satisfied with? That's the first thing. Then we can talk about what number to apply. I mean, we have enough experts here today. We have Mr. Tremblay, we have Mr. Riley, we have Crossman, who's going to weigh in on even on the next plan here tonight. So I don't know. That's why we hired.
If I may,
this
is Mark Tremblay. If I may, at the planning board meeting, the last one in December, I don't think anybody had any issue with the reforestation plan itself. The discussion was the bond amount.
Right, and
I did. This is Emily. I raised some concerns about the plan itself and the difference from the Crossman estimate that haven't been addressed.
Can we make sure that we're talking, when we're talking about the plan itself versus the cost estimates? So the plan is just basically the process we go through to make sure the site is ready to be, planted on, acquire the number of trees, the species of trees that we would acquire, and hiring a consultant to oversee the process, restoration a year or two later if there's a certain percentage of failure. All those kind of procedural issues is the plan. The cost estimate is what we're discussing here, I believe.
Okay, well, we're discussing both, but I want to facilitate this if I can. Emily, are you prepared to tell us what your issues are with the amended reforestation plan, and we can assess them and maybe determine some sort of a dollar amount that these experts might be able to agree to, such that we can come up with an amended plan tonight and also an appropriate dollar amount for that. I'd like to see if we couldn't conclude this tonight, if possible, with all the people we have here.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, you basically outlined it, Jim. The materials before us, there is no single document that captures everything I think that we're looking for. We have an amended plan that is incomplete because it doesn't include a line item to remove tubes, stakes, and ties. I also mentioned at the last in-person meeting that I thought that the post-planting monitoring period that the Crossman estimate included for 5 years to take a look at the success of the plantings, evaluate them, that was something I was interested in seeing in a final reforestation plan. And there is no, in Mr. Tremblay's plan, there is no line item for a guarantee as is included in the Sweet Birch plan, or, you know, of that, something of that nature. Basically, in the Sweet Birch plan, he says they'll replant up to 20 acres of plants and include the labor for that during some subsequent year to account for, you know, up to 30% mortality or something. So there's elements of the Sweet Birch plan that are good that should be put into this. There are elements of the Crossman plan that are good that should be put into this. But the amended plan that we have in our packet does not have those components I just noted, and therefore, you know, I can't agree to it. It's incomplete in my mind.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, this is John Mancini. We incorporated those in that 20% contingency issue. So in the markup of the Crossman engineering, we don't have a disagreement with respect to removal and installation of tree tubes, the post-planting monitoring for a minimum of 5 years, or the 1-year guarantee minimum. So that can be incorporated into the restoration plan. We don't have a problem with that. Those were the comments that were also made by Crossman. We agreed with them. We believe those were already incorporated in Sweet Birch's comments. So we don't have an issue with that. We thought that they were already contemplated in the 20%, which was part of what was provided. So we can agree to that.
Well, I disagree with that, actually, because the Sweet Birch plan includes a separate 20% contingency on top of that, you know, 1 year, 20-acre guarantee. So I think they're quite separate, and so I'd like to see the separate line item.
The dollar amount is at 20% for those items. We can agree to Crossman's itemization in its conceptual, in what's known as the conceptual engineer cost estimate for restoration plan. Those items 1 through 11, we agree with, and they will be in the plan. And then those have also been quantified with numbers. And I believe that that's also been carried through in the Sweet Birch estimates and in their proposal. I mean, they're here this evening, and Crossman's your engineer. They're your peer reviewer. They've proposed it. We've agreed with it.
So the items 1 through 11 in the Crossman thing, the Crossman estimate, their conceptual engineer's cost estimate, I do not see a 1 through 11 in the Sweet Birch estimate, and I don't see a 1 through 11 in your amended plan either. You know, there just has to be one plan with all this stuff in it for us to look at. We're being asked to look at like multiple documents and mix and match.
Well, no. We can agree to the Crossman Engineering conceptual engineering cost estimate restoration plan 1 through 11. We don't have an issue with those items.
But they're not in your plan.
Let's make sure we're talking about the December 13th spreadsheet, not the original.
Right, the December 13th, 2019 plan. And Mark, they can be incorporated into your plan.
Yes, of course. I can re-amend my plan, if that's the proper word, to incorporate those specifics, if you'd like, so that you can come up with one final number. And I think they're going to be close to this $200,000+ bond proposal.
Right. Well, the December 2019 Crossman Engineering Plan revised shows $224,113. And that has items 1 through 11 on it.
Al Diorio here. Emily, it seems that you're pushing for a document, a revised document that you'd like to have before you say yes or no. Is that true?
Yes.
Are you,
I agree with Emily.
Are folks uncomfortable with the admission that the applicant is prepared to accept these revisions? Again, I'm only looking to endorse Jim's idea of finalizing tonight, if at all possible, but I don't want to do that at the risk of making people uncomfortable. So give me some direction. If this is what you want, this is what we'll make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen that December 13th version of this spreadsheet. We're looking at a November 26th. I would love to have this, finished tonight. Of course, we want this wrapped up as quick as possible. But I mean, I haven't seen that document. I would feel really uncomfortable agreeing to something I haven't seen.
Understood. Keith, you feel the same way?
If 1 through 11 are the same itemizations, and then it's just the dollar amount is the different after that. And you're agreeing to 1 through 11, but at the cost of 136, or 1 through 11 at the cost of 200 plus that Crossman's suggesting. I'm not sure what Mr. Mancini's agreeing to when he says.
I understand. Listen, if a couple of planning board members feel that you need the revised document, then let's not waste each other's time. Get the right document, put it all in one place the way Emily has suggested, and we'll move forward based on that. That would be my recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, this is John Mancini. If Crossman's on the line, I mean, they would know. They prepared the plan. I mean, they could tell us what they have and if they've submitted. I mean, I can make it very easy. We are okay, as I said, with regards to items 1 through 11. We can incorporate that into the reforestation plan. Crossman can confirm it, and the matter is complete.
Yep, I understand. That's not what the planning board members are directing us to do. So
okay, well then just so we're clear in this in direction, I would just ask that the board direct, because Crossman is not our engineer. We don't have control over Crossman, so we'd ask that the board ask Crossman to give them a recommendation that with a complete plan, and we'll give that to us, and we can finalize that.
Hello, if I may, this is Steve Cabral from Crossman.
Go ahead, Steve.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes, the item numbers 1 through 11 are essentially identical from the November and the December cost estimates. And the reason the numbers are different is that the original estimate was based on more of an engineering perspective with, typical union rates and typical landscape companies and their costs. And at the suggestion of the town, we did meet with the applicant's professional forester, and we had a lengthy meeting where we discussed, the process and the forestry profession and the type of labor that would be used. And so we did amend our estimate in December with lower rates, but the actual item numbers 1 through 11 stayed the same. Now, because our numbers were still higher than the applicants, it was agreed upon to hire an independent professional forester, Mr. Chris Riley, to prepare his own estimate. What we did do is we did not give him our estimate because we wanted his to be completely independent. So that's why in the Chris Riley estimate, he doesn't have the same exact numbers, because that's really not what we were looking for. We wanted a complete independent evaluation by a professional forester.
And Steve, can you tell us what the number was that you came to on your December 13, 2019 plan or estimate?
$224,113.
Thank you.
What was that submitted to the board or to the planner?
You know what? In all honesty, I don't recall who it was emailed to last December.
I'll check my emails when I get in the office in the morning, but I don't recall seeing it, but I'm not gonna say
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Yes. And you know what, Jim, and I believe what was happening at this time is because there was still a big difference between our numbers and the applicants, that it was decided that we weren't going to essentially push our numbers. We were more interested in the independent forester's number, Mr. Riley's.
Yeah, that's my recollection too, Steve. That's how we got the independent third-party person to begin with. Yep.
Yes. So it is possible that you may not have this because at the time it wasn't relevant. But certainly tonight, I wish I did email it if I didn't.
Okay, so let's recap. We're spinning our wheels. Gentlemen, you got to put all your eggs in one place so that the planning board has a single document to review and accept. So I don't care how it happens. I just want you to make it happen. Work with the planner, get it sorted out, get it back before us, and let's get this done. We're good?
Yeah, that's simple. We can do that. We can work with Steve and ensure that this December 13, 2019 document gets to the town with the amended reforestation plan.
Outstanding. Planning board members, are you with me on this? I don't mean to usurp anyone's thinking, but if you object to the strategy that I'm proposing, please let me know.
It's Keith again. I guess my question is, the Crossman has 11 line items, and Sweet Birch on the front page mentions 6 line items. Are some of those, I guess I want to be able to compare where things are combined and what we're removing from Crossman's list of 11 items to these 6 items that I'm seeing on their cover page. I don't know how to compare those two things.
I will, this is Mark Tremblay, if you don't mind. I will prepare the re-amended reforestation plan. I'm not going to touch the reforestation plan itself. The page that details the work items, I will make sure that they correspond with the Crossman estimate from December. That is in people's inboxes, I'm sure, by tomorrow. So that it's clear to everybody that we're talking apples and apples here, and incorporating the different viewpoints that have been processed through this.
Jim Lampier here, town planner. Can I just interject one thing? It's my understanding from listening from Emily, okay, she likes elements of all of them. So what is wrong with taking the spreadsheet from Crossman, the additional items that Sweet Birch put in their estimate, put them into the amended reforestation plan, and then let's come back with a spreadsheet from Crossman that has the recommended number to do that, right? We're trying to make an amalgamation of all these plans, right? So we can tremendous progress tonight, okay? I think we know where we need to go. Just get it done, and it should be a 5-minute meeting at the next planning board meeting, as I see it. I mean, this is not rocket science.
Jim, we can absolutely do that. That's exactly what we'll do, and we'll have it over to you. That can be done.
Okay, very good. So again, if planning board members are okay with this, let's have a motion to continue this until August. Bear with me. 5th. Thank you. August 5th. Can I get a motion?
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we continue this until the August meeting.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion on this? All in favor? Diorio, yes.
Krulowitz, yes.
Lindelof, yes.
Emily Shamshina, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, planning board members. I need you to take a look at your clocks. Tell me what you think about the next application and where we stand in time. Give me your thoughts.
My opinion is that this next one for Frontier Campground, there's going to be a lot of input coming from the audience, and I think we should probably postpone this to another time. It's going to be a lengthy conversation.
This is Carolyn. I agree it would be unfair to the applicant to put these kinds of time constraints on that presentation. Unless we extend the meeting time.
And so Carolyn, what's your recommendation? Are you saying go or no go?
I say it's a no-go. It's not fair to them, no.
I understand.
I'm going to allow Karen Browning to speak. She's the attorney for the applicant. Yes, Ms. Browning.
Good evening, Attorney Karen Browning on behalf of the applicant, Revity Energy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, we are all here. We were looking forward to presenting tonight. We do notice the time, and I do acknowledge that you have a 10 p.m. Adjournment. We would respectfully request an extension past 10 o'clock, even if it's just to start the presentation, but I leave that to the board.
Karen, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate your position. I haven't heard from all the planning board members yet, but let me tell you where I stand. So my day starts at 3 o'clock in the morning. You get to 10 or 11 o'clock, I'm running on fumes. So I certainly don't mind starting or having you start your presentation. My concern for you is we're eventually going to get to the point where we're going to drop the curtain. And if you're okay with doing a piece of it, I guess I would be okay, as long as you don't feel compromised. Karen, feedback.
I appreciate that we're all tired, and I certainly don't want to extend anyone's night any longer than it has to go. I guess I leave it up to the board respectfully.
Okay, let's hear from the other planning board members then. Who else would care to weigh in on this?
Keith here. I'd just prefer to start fresh from the beginning and not start tonight.
Okay, I've got 3.
And this is Emily. I had in my notes about this, there was still an outstanding question on this project, a note from Jim actually about approval from the fire marshal. There are some other items identified in the Crossman review of the plans that I think, unless the applicant planned on, rectifying all of that for us tonight, I think giving them some extra time to address those things before they come before us again actually might be a good thing.
So if I can respond to that, the fire issue has been addressed, and fire has been in contact with planning. The Crossman comment, it's my understanding that everything has been addressed or will be discussed during the presentation and resolved. We have continued this matter already once, and I know that everybody on your side and on our side is looking forward to getting this done. And I don't, what I'm trying to do is avoid another wait of another month. Would it be possible to do a special meeting sometime before your next scheduled meeting of August 5th?
I'm going to defer to the planner for that kind of discussion.
Okay, Jim Lampier, Town Planner. I would certainly be amenable to, personally, to any number of meetings necessary to get the work done that I got to get done in my office, okay? I already see one thing coming back tonight, from tonight to next month. I see this is definitely coming back next month. I already have 4 things for next month regardless of this, and with more to come. So I know solar has taken up a tremendous amount of our planning board's time lately. There are other residential projects that have to get through the system. So making this short, just so that we don't have a total waste of everybody's time in an evening here, okay? It's almost 10 o'clock. If we could just get an extension to 10:15 with the purpose of, now the planning board has been provided with a tremendous amount of information, okay? One of the things, we have a memo from Crossman stating that, you know, a good number of the issues have been resolved between Dupree and Crossman, okay? But not all of them. So I would ask the planning board members, just so that we can give the applicant some direction, based upon how you feel about this project. I mean, I see that there's potentially a number of open-ended things that the planning board hasn't even contemplated yet. They've mentioned them in the past, but they haven't really delved into them. And I'm thinking about things like, I don't know if any of the planning board members have taken advantage of the invitation extended to them to visit the site. I don't know how, now, let me finish. I don't know if the planning board, how the planning board might feel about potentially kicking this back from a residential zone. That really hasn't been fleshed out yet. We have the public to hear from on this. So again, do you think the planning board would be comfortable tonight, based upon the information that you've been provided in your packet, the site plans you have, the landscape plans, are there any issues that you would like this applicant to further develop before we come back in August 5th, so that we don't waste a month getting right back to the spot where we are right now?
To interject,
Good job.
it is 10 p.m. right now, so I think it would be prudent to probably make the vote to extend until 10:15.
Al Diorio, I kind of like Jim's idea. I can gather up the fortitude to go for a small amount longer. 10:15, 10:30 is okay with me, and I very much like Jim's idea of, again, presuming that the applicant is okay with this, giving the applicant planning board feedback. So that means the applicant doesn't do a presentation tonight. Instead, the planning board members, I'm sure, have made notes. Let's give those ideas to the applicant, so when we get together next, we can be more productive. What do we think about that?
This is Carolyn. I'm on
Sounds
board.
good.
Yes, I would agree to 10:15.
Can I have a motion to that effect? Motion to extend the meeting to 10:15, please.
This is Carolyn. I'm making a motion to extend the meeting to 10:15.
Can I have a second?
I'll second. Ron here.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Diorio, yes.
Aye. Crowitz, yes.
Light, yes.
Lindahl, yes.
Shamshini, yes.
Okay. Is the applicant okay with this idea of the planning board members offering their thoughts based on the materials that we have received thus far?
Mr. Chair, Ralph Palumbo from Revity Energy, I believe, is waiting to speak, to respond. I'd ask that he be given a chance to respond. I don't know if he needs to be unmuted.
He has to raise his hand, and he has to press star 9 to do so. If he presses star 9, I'll be able to identify him. Mr. Palumbo.
Karen, are you there? This is Jim Lampier.
I'm here. I'm texting with Mr. Palumbo now. They are trying to raise his hand. The number ends in 111.
All right, he should be able to speak now. He
right.
raised his hand,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
is the directive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had raised our hand when you asked. This is Ralph Palumbo. Thank you, Chairman Diorio. I do appreciate the long day. I have a similar day to you, so I do appreciate you extending it for the 15 minutes, and I do appreciate Jim Lanfear's suggestion. So we have some productivity from this, and we welcome to hear what the planning board has for constructive guidance at this time.
Okay, listen, I'm ready to, Al Diorio, I'm ready to lead on this, if the planning board members are okay with that.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so my notes are a little bit sketchy, but I'm hoping that you'll be able to go to the report and glean what I'm interested in seeing. My first one had to do with, there's a SAGE report 6/10/2020. The comment that I have is, there's some discussion about modifications to the construction plans. I think I need clarification on just how you plan to pull that off. Are you coming back to the planning board? Is this going to be worked out with the town planner, the town engineer? I think there needs to be some clarification. You can't just have folks making adjustments to construction plans all helter-skelter. Second one, there's a Crossman report 6/24/2020, which I think speaks to the same topic, conditions requiring improvements. I think I need a little bit more clarification on that particular topic. You've got some landscaping details that incorporate fences. I don't know where this idea came from. This is not Cranston, and I know, so fences don't really belong here. Now, I know that we've made an exception to this rule. It had to do with Main Street. In hindsight, I'm not sure that was the best idea. I'd like you to take another look at how you've arranged your fencing on the berms, and let's see if we can get back to using landscaping as a buffering instead of putting fences up. And
Mr. Diorio, could I respond to that? I have just a point of clarification.
Yep, sure.
It's our understanding, based on the ordinance and your guidelines, that fences would be required.
Okay, I need to review that. If that's the case, then it sounds like you've done the right thing and I might be misjudging.
Okay, we'll make a point of it. We can have that discussion.
And I'll go back and review that myself. And then my last comment here, the rather volatile topic of decommissioning. So I got just two comments. First, who are the experts? I got stuff flying all over this package, but I'm not sure who the expert is. And I'm referring to I'm going to put the term expert in quotes, our expert as well. Someone put together a piece of information, but just because you got PE after your name, in my opinion, is not going to be enough to designate you as an expert in solar decommissioning. So
if I could just, again, clarify for that point, your solar ordinance actually requires that the project engineer, a licensed Rhode Island engineer, submit a decommissioning estimate. So that was done. And in addition to that, We Recycle Solar has been retained by the applicant to testify in addition as the project expert. I'll take it one step further. We have had discussions. Obviously, your peer reviewer, Crossman, has reviewed all of the information we've provided, and they have their own estimate as well.
And I'm actually, it's the latter that concerns me.
the Crossman estimate.
Correct. I'm well aware that you have an expert on your team, and we have a report from them, and we'll get into their areas of expertise at the appropriate time. But I'm looking for Crossman to step up and say, why are you the expert here? Okay, and so those are my only comments as far as I got in reviewing your significant package. I'll look forward to other planning board members chiming in with their concerns.
Ron Perlowitz here. I have no more concerns at this time.
Hey, this is Carolyn Light. Can I speak my thoughts? I got to tell you, I am impressed with where this project is going. I like the effort for the setbacks. The landscaping plan is nice to see, and I think that we have a strong possibility that we can all get to the same place at the end of the day. I do have a question, which would be, how come we can't do a 100-foot setback around the entire site? And the other question, well, it's not as much of a question, I'd like to see a state permit that indicates that the Vinagro facility is approved to accept electronic waste. Per the technical data sheet that was supplied to us and our binders, at the end of the day, it indicates that it's e-waste. My attempt
I'm sorry, Ms. Light. Ms. Light, this is the court reporter. It indicates what?
That it's
e-waste.
E-waste, electronic waste.
Thank you.
Okay. And then further, I had to do a little more research, and I learned that Rhode Island is prepared to accept more residential size electronic waste in its facilities. When I called the Department of Environment, the DEM, I was told that they don't know the answer to how one would dispose of a residential solar panel, not even the commercial. So I'm asking for some verification that the facility these would be trucked to is licensed in the state of Rhode Island to handle that waste. And that's all I have to say. But I really am excited with the development of the plan and the direction it's going. I guess we have to address these other strong issues at a later date. Thank you.
If I could just respond briefly regarding the setbacks. The setbacks proposed at this point do comply with your ordinance. There was a reference to the Vinagro, I believe the Vinagro report that was submitted. We want to be clear that the street decommissioning estimate and the We Recycle solar estimate were or are the ones that the applicant is relying on. The Vinagro was provided only as additional support. Also, it's my understanding that e-waste does not typically include solar. If it's not hazardous, there may not be specific licensing requirements.
I need to interrupt you there and ask you to refer to the technical data sheet that was provided to us in our packet, because the TDS does clearly state that it's e-waste.
Okay, we will check that. Thank you.
Planning board members, anyone else care to weigh in?
This is Emily. I have a couple things quickly. So aside from the other issues that have already been raised, I noticed in the cover letter to the environmental impact statement, it talked about the grading that's proposed, and it mentioned that there's an area to be graded to 7.25 feet where groundwater was found at 8.5 feet. And I interpreted this to mean that after grading, essentially groundwater would be within 15 inches of the surface. Similarly, in another area, grading would be to 10.7 feet. Groundwater was found at 9 feet. And in this case, groundwater would be within 21 inches of the surface after this grading. So, you know, I was concerned. I have a background in environmental science. I understand the soils are very well draining, sandy, stony. It seems to me that with this little material left before groundwater, there's a lot of risk to the groundwater supply from any kind of contamination. I also don't even know what the stability of those types of soils is. You know, you guys have the engineers. You know, can you drive heavy machinery over a groundwater reservoir that's just 15 inches from the surface? I don't know. You know, and obviously I mentioned if anything spilled, this is nearly immediately going to reach the groundwater. So erosion would also be a concern in this situation where you've only got a thin veneer of soil. I think this is the scenario that the plan mentioned. You know, if they encounter groundwater shallower than this, they're going to have to make some construction plans and change them. And that's what Al was referring to with, you know, how are you going to do that? So I would just highlight that as one issue that concerns me. Another, and this is my final one, is the plan notes there's 9.8 acres of trees to be cleared, which is an increase over the initial estimates. The plan notes that this increase as well. I just think it would have been a really awesome, you know, gesture to the town to not clear any trees on a commercial property at a commercial scale solar development. It would have shown really good faith. It would have been a really nice example that we could all point to that you can have solar development in town on existing cleared land and you don't have to do any destruction to forests. So I was disappointed to see this 9.8 acres of trees to be cleared, which again was an increase over some of your initial estimates. And I hope there's something you can do to address that. Oh, and one final thing in my notes. You did mark out and map the stone walls. The archaeological assessment had some really nice maps of the stone walls as well. Wondering if you're removing them. And that pertains to the ones in the middle of the property and along the edges of the property, the south and I think eastern sides of the property. Thanks.
It's now 10:16. How are we going to proceed, Al?
I just want to make sure that everybody gets their comments out. Have we heard from all the planning board members that care to say anything? Anyone left?
I'm fine for tonight. I have some real concerns about the decommissioning, but that's, it's just, there's a lot, too much unknown. Like you said, who's the expert? And I'd want to hear some more from whoever that expert is.
Okay, good. Any other planning board members? Otherwise, I'm going to start turning off the lights.
Mr. Girio, could I ask a question?
Of course.
This is Karen Browning. I just want to be clear about the issue that's of the experts on the town side. It appears as though the town, or just the questions that have been raised in the last couple of minutes, seem to be wondering about who the town's expert might be. Is that a correct characterization?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
So I, in offering that up, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, quite all right. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page that when we do come back before you, you have what, and we'll take all of these comments, obviously, into consideration. But on this particular issue, the solar ordinance is very clear that the decommissioning estimate is determined by the town engineering consultant. I'm not sure that another expert on the town side is required.
Okay, we might disagree on that point. So listen, the idea that, I don't mean to be to carry this on longer than we have to. This is supposed to be the litmus test of decommissioning in our town. Are we on the same page? I don't think I'm springing this on you. This is what we expressed to the public, that your project was going to be an example of how we handle decommissioning.
That said, as an applicant, we are focused on compliance with your ordinances.
Yeah, yes, I understand. And you're doing a laudable job, don't get me wrong. But on our side, I just want to make sure that the folks that we're relying upon have the proper experts on their team. That's all. And since we're all here, all listening to the same thing at the same time, I just want to make sure that I get that out.
No, I think that's important to get that out, and I appreciate that. But I just want to be absolutely crystal clear for when we come back, that the ordinance states the amount of security shall be based on the estimated cost of removal at the end of the useful life of the facility as determined by the town engineering consultant.
I'm well aware of what the statement says, yes.
Okay.
We're good? Okay. Jim has something that he'd like to get out.
Well, I'd like to touch upon this particular topic if I could, in an effort to facilitate movement of it. Let's look at that entire 2 paragraphs, okay? And I just want to.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lanfair. I didn't get that.
Okay, I want, Karen, I want to take a look at the ordinance that pertains to both of those paragraphs with financial security, okay? And I want to go over it because I want to see if we've made any progress here. Okay, I'm going to read it. It says, the applicant shall establish and maintain a financial security instrument covering the PSES from commencement of operation through decommission completion, okay? Such instrument may be an escrow account, cash or surety bond, or other forms acceptable to the planning board. Now, the security must be sufficient to cover the complete cost of removal in the event the town or its contractor must remove the PSES in a form and amount determined to be reasonable by the planning board. But in no event shall the security exceed 125% of the estimated cost of removal, okay? Now, here's the paragraph that you were referring to a couple of sentences. The applicant shall submit a fully inclusive estimate of the costs associated with removal. I believe you folks have done that, okay? Prepared by a qualified engineer licensed in the state of Rhode Island and verified, right? Your estimate shall be verified by the town engineering consultant. I would maintain that's been done as well, okay? We have Crossman who stands by the decommissioning estimate that I've given the planning board, all right? So I'd like to know if we can at least accept that as a starting point for going forward. And again, the board's gonna determine that, okay? But as I read this ordinance, the board has within its power to increase that number by as much as 125%. And also, like you just read, okay? The amount of the security shall be based on the estimated cost of removal at the end of the useful life, okay? The cost estimate shall include a mechanism for estimating the anticipated increased cost over the lifespan. So we want to factor in what it's going to be at the end of 30 years, let's say, okay? So I'm not sure if we've done that yet. Maybe you have, but I think you should address that. And again, take it to the planning board and see if the planning board is fine with that, because I agree with you. At the end of the day, we have to adhere to this ordinance. By and large, I have to agree with you. I think you have. So, I mean, to take this in any other radical direction at this point, I don't think we're on very solid ground. So, I'd love to hear what the planning board says about that. Are we in the ballpark with a decommissioning estimate, or do people want to take this in directions that I can't fathom? Because I'd like to know that you folks have come most of the way in this here. I'm not saying we've arrived at the final number yet, but we have to be somewhat in the ballpark, I would think. Now, I also want to mention too is that we're going to need to ask you for an extension on this here tonight. You've already granted one the last time to tonight. So I think it's fair to assume that we're going to need, some additional time to look at this application, maybe even more than one more month. I don't know the way it's going. So
Let's get the
If I
extension.
may,
Let's get the
This
extension.
is Carolyn.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I'll be quiet. Go ahead.
if I may, I'd like to add to what Jim was saying. I think it may be helpful if everybody on the board was to see what that decommission amount, not to change what is going to be submitted to us, but to extrapolate that out over 20 years or 25 years, if it was put into a bond, what the figure would be at that time. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Ralph Palumbo. May I be heard briefly?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, I think this has been an extremely productive 23 minutes, as I see from my clock, and I appreciate you hanging in there. Just on this decommissioning topic, I've done decommissioning in multiple states in 30 projects, and I will tell you this project is broaching $30,000 a megawatt. That's the highest I've ever seen. So I do think the town has vigorously, to this point, represented themselves and has done a prudent job in protecting itself. I know that can be construed as a self-serving statement, but I've seen a lot of cities and towns throughout Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut approve a lot of different decommissioning plans, and none of them has broached 30,000. So
I'm sorry, Mr. Palumbo. I'm sorry, Mr. Palumbo. I can't hear what you're saying. Massachusetts and Connecticut approved a lot of decommissioning.
Yes, I've done over 30 projects in the tri-state area, and this particular project, where we're at right now, is the highest that I've seen in all of those projects. So I know that's a self-serving statement. It can be construed as self-serving, but I just want to let the town know that you're in a position that's a lot better than all of the other communities that I've worked in. Okay, we will continue to work with you. We have what I believe to be the most pronounced expert in this industry in a very sophisticated way of decommissioning the solar, and that's when we recycle solar. The Giab and Agro Corp was a backup to it. They're a local, very experienced contractor we do a lot of work with, and they can remove, repair, truck, recycle, and dispose. They can do everything right here in Rhode Island. So it's that I believe is a very good representation. As for going out 30 years, when we put an escrow of cash in today's dollars, and then we invest it, that money grows over that 30 years, and the interest earnings equate to whatever inflation there is typically, and that's how we address that. So I want to leave the board with those thoughts. It's late. I appreciate you have to get up very early tomorrow. I do too. And so I just want to say thank you, because I know we've went over it tonight. Jim has asked for an extension. I'll leave it up to Karen. We will extend as sufficient as we can. We'd like to be back before this, before your commission as soon as possible. So I'll turn it over to Karen now. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Karen Browning. Given the volume of information here and the detailed nature of it and the pointed and very good comments that we've received tonight from the planning board, does it make sense for this matter to come back before you for a special meeting?
I've heard, Al Diorio, I've heard Jim's concerns about the upcoming workload, and personally, I'm fine with a special meeting. It's not something we do all the time, but these are different conditions, and I'm prepared to roll with it if the other members of the planning board are as well.
This is Carolyn. I'm on board. I support that.
This is Ron. I'll support whatever the board decides.
I'll agree also, Keith.
Same here, this is Emily.
Okay, that sounds pretty unanimous to me. Jim, I need to know how then we go about getting from where we are tonight to a special meeting.
We'll have to check the availability of the room here. I guess a lot of Wednesdays are available.
So in
Jim,
some.
we're having trouble hearing you on our side. This is Karen.
Yeah. Thank you.
So do you work this out with the applicant? Can we leave it at that? Can we leave it at that?
Right. I would suggest that we at least get an official minimum of 1 month extension.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing Mr. Lanfair.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting lazy and I'm leaning back in my
That's
chair.
okay.
And I'm not talking into the mic. I'd like to get at least a minimum of another 1 month extension from you folks. And then I would think that in the interim, we can probably fit you in some Wednesday because we can come up with an agenda. Are Wednesdays good for the planning board for the most part?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
So all right, then we'll set up a special meeting as soon as we can get it set up, some Wednesday before August 5th. Then we can talk about it more August 5th, maybe if we make some progress, we'll see. We'll just keep hammering away until we keep making progress on this thing. We got issue after issue to iron out, and we'll get them one at a time. But we're not going to do this unless we keep at it. So let's go.
Good. So in summary, then I'm going to leave it to the applicant and the planner to work out the date of the special meeting. Do I have a verbal extension for the 1 month so that we can skirt the issues?
Could we do this? Could we say that special meeting on the 15th with a 30-day extension for decision, which would bring us to your next planned board meeting, which is, I believe, August 5th. So that would give us some time if we needed to go one more meeting. So the special meeting the 15th with a full 30-day extension to August 5th.
At this point, we don't know if the chamber will be available for a meeting.
Okay.
Okay, this is Carolyn. This is Carolyn. I'd like to say if the chamber is available, then I'm good with the 15th.
Al Diorio's good for the 15th if things work out.
Same here, Keith Lindelof.
Same, this is Emily.
I will let Jim know. I'm hearing hands being raised in the home, so I have to have a home conference on the 15th.
Okay, so we'll use that as a target, yes?
Yeah, we'll strive for that, and we'll see if we can make some kind of progress anyway on the 15th, and then if we need to come back for August 5th, Ron will be back on board, and we'll continue to plug along.
So then do we have an extension until August 5th?
Yes, agreed, on behalf of the applicant.
This is Carolyn, yes.
Well,
okay, great.
It was the applicant, Carolyn. So we're good?
I'm fine. Yep, let's get it done.
Okay. Are we all set on this particular application? Thanks for everybody for sticking it out.
Amen. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Have a good night.
No motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.
No, we're moving on to the other. Moving on to the other components of our agenda. Are we good? New business, none. Solicitors report. I'm sorry, was that a none?
That was a no.
Planners report.
In your packet, I put a administrative subdivision that I completed here for Classic Acres. Very simple shift of a lot line. So you see it in your packet there. That's all I have.
Excellent, thank you. Correspondence and updates, none. Public forum. No,
We have
the-
one member of the public.
The notation is, you raise your hand, you use the *9.
Please state your name for the record, 8222.
It's Joe Moreau, Old Depot Road. I appreciate you guys sticking out. I'm going to make this real quick. I want to thank you for doing the right thing tonight, not being pushed into something that you are uncomfortable with as far as the requirements. And the other point I want to make is that here we are, Carolyn Light is trying to support our community in a volunteer position. It's amazing to me how some attorneys and developers will do whatever they can to remove members of the planning board or the town council who they perceive as a no vote. I need to get that out, and thanks again for your time.
Joe, thank you. Anyone else, public forum? No hands. Date of the next regular meeting is August 5th. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Motion, second.
Second.
Second, Carolyn, yes.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor? Diorio, yes.
Aye. Perlwitz, yes.
Yes. Lindelof, yes.
Virginia, yes.
Very good.
Yay.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Bye.